Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to call this commission meeting of Tallahassee City Commission to order. It is 3 o'clock on Wednesday, April 16th. We have a full schedule plus a public hearing at 6 o'clock. So why don't we begin? First and foremost, for our invocation tonight, I'd like to recognize Commissioner Curtis Richardson for a special introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And this is an absolutely special introduction for me. I'd like to introduce the pastor of the Bethel African Methodist Episcopal Church here in Tallahassee, Reverend Michael Price, that will do the invocation for us this afternoon. Reverend Price is newly appointed to Bethel AME Church in the 11th Episcopal District, and we are so pleased to have he and his family as leadership, the leadership of our church.
Reverend Price is
Reverend Price.
Would you please stand? Thank you for the kind words, Brother Richardson. Thank you, Mayor Daly, for the invite, privilege, and pleasure to pray before this body. And thanks to each of our council persons for your work and labor of love for our great city. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, as our city council gathers today, we are grateful for the opportunity they have to serve our community and work together for the common good. We thank you for the diverse perspectives and talents within this council, and for the challenges and opportunities that lie before them and us. As we deliberate on the important matters before us, we ask for your wisdom, discernment, and guidance. May we approach our task with humility, listen to one another with respect, and seek to make decisions that reflect your will and serve the best interests of all of our citizens. Help them, dear Lord, in these constitutional challenging times to be a council of integrity and service, striving to make Tallahassee a better place for all. We pray this in your holy and righteous name, and the people of God said, amen.
Amen. Amen. Reverend Price, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, if you will join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Reverend Price, again, thank you for coming today. Reverend Price, congratulations on your appointment to Bethel AME. I know that this is a homecoming. You were reminding me you are from the area, so welcome back, and it's great to have you here today, and happy Holy Week, sir. All right, Mr. Manager, do we have any agenda modifications?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. Item 12.06, which seeks the ratification of an emergency purchase necessary for road repairs on Henderson Road, has been added to your meeting material.
Any other modifications?
No, sir.
All right, any questions on the modifications? Okay. I would invite all my colleagues to join me down. We have 4 presentations today. The first 2 presentations, proclamations, were by request of Commissioner Richardson, so I will allow him to present those 2. The 3rd presentation proclamation was by request of Commissioner Diane Williams-Cox, Mayor Pro Tem. Allow her to present that one, and I'll present the 4th today. So, Commissioner Richardson.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yep. It is certainly my pleasure to present these proclamations to 2 wonderful organizations that are doing great work in our community on behalf of those who live, work, and play in the city of Tallahassee. So the first will be the Hopi Award, or the Hope Proclamation, and I'd like to recognize Dr. Rosalind Tompkins, who is here, that will be accepting that proclamation. Yes, Dr. Brenda Jarman. Is Aranetta here? Aranetta, oh, there's Aranetta. That's my girl.
How are we doing?
Nettie Walker, Paramore, Sharon Durham, and Teresa Rittman are all here with us. All right. And the proclamation reads, whereas in 2017, Dr. Rosalind Y.L. Tompkins applied to the National Day Calendar on behalf of Mothers in Crisis, Inc., a nonprofit organization dedicated to spreading hope and help to those in need in Tallahassee and the surrounding areas for the past 34 years.
Let's clap.
All right. And whereas Mothers in Crisis received the designation for April to become the National Month of Hope from the National Day Calendar and celebrated the first National Month of Hope in 2018 and every year since. Whereas in 2019, Mothers in Crisis instituted the HOPE, Helping Others Practice Enduring Empowerment Awards, and presented them to various notable persons each April in honor of the National Month of Hope. And I'm proud to say that my wife and I were both recipients of that award. Thank you.
Yes.
Pastor Tompkins. Whereas in 2020, Mothers in Crisis implemented the Hope for Health campaign during April, National Month of Hope, at the height of the coronavirus, COVID-19 pandemic. And whereas in 2021, Mothers in Crisis presented the 10,000 Balls for Hope campaign, giving stress balls to essential workers and others during April, National Month of Hope. And whereas in 2022 and 2023, Mothers in Crisis spotlighted the Hope, Pass It On, and Save a Life campaign during April, National Month of Hope, to help turn the tide on the rising suicide rate among young people. And whereas in 2024, Mothers in Crisis launched the Are You Hoped campaign during April, National Month of Hope, to train others to have and spread hope through the practice of hopeology. And whereas in 2025, Mothers in Crisis launched the Stars of Hope campaign during April, National Month of Hope, to recognize everyday heroes. And whereas as April is set aside in honor of the National Month of Hope, a month to promote the public awareness of hope by means of public advocacy. Now, therefore, I, John E. Daly, by the authority vested in me as Mayor of the City of Tallahassee, and this is from the mayor. I'm reading it as is. Do hereby recognize April as Hope Month, a month to spread hope and help those in need, in witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Tallahassee to be affixed, and that is by Mayor John E. Daly, dated this day, April 16, 2025. Pastor Thompson. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And I would just like to say that we are so very excited, as you can see, because we've been here in this city of Tallahassee and surrounding areas. This is our 34th year, and we've been through a lot since that time. What started out as primarily an organization to help those who were struggling with drugs and alcohol addiction, to get clean and to live productive lives, has now turned into a full-fledged movement of hope that is national and international, as we have partners in different countries that are also celebrating April as a National Month of Hope. But we're just so proud of the City of Tallahassee for being the leader, and that this bright light is shining from here. And we're especially excited about our Stars of Hope campaign this year. And we have a present for all of the commissioners, because we want to deem you as Stars of Hope. So please accept this. We are giving these keychains out far and wide. And really what the campaign is all about is to recognize everyday heroes, those that may not be in the spotlight. So you guys are always in the spotlight, but you still deserve them. but just, your neighbor who checks on that elderly person, or maybe a friend who, because whenever we talk about we want to impact, there's two social indicators that we're looking at impacting now, and that is the suicide rate, which is still too high. One is too high, but especially since it is increasing among our young people. And so many times whenever something like that happens, the family has no idea. So just being able to check in with one another, and those persons in your neighborhood, in your church, in your community that is really there and checking on one another and keeping tabs with one another, that is what this campaign of Stars of Hope is all about. And then the second social indicator is the pandemic that we are experiencing right now of isolation. And so many people are experiencing that, where they have this social isolation, the epidemic of loneliness. It's such a problem until there was a warning that was given by the Attorney General. I think that was a couple of years ago. But we're looking at trying to be that community, be those persons that will be there for one another, because that's what Mothers in Crisis has done all of these years. Women helping women, families helping families, and we've made our impact, and now we're continuing to make that impact with the help of the City of Tallahassee and these great commissioners who are all Stars of Hope. Let's give them a hand. Yes.
All right, this is my second proclamation, which I am equally as honored to present. And I'd like to ask Barbara Goldstein if she would join me. And Barbara, I know you've got some other guests with you. See Susan
up,
Turner.
Come on.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Glad y'all were able to join us today.
Thank you for having us.
This is
Thank you.
This is such a pleasure to be able to present this proclamation. And so I will read it and make the proclamation, and Barbara will give you an opportunity to say some words if you'd like. The proclamation reads, whereas the Holocaust was state-sponsored, systematic persecution and annihilation of European Jewry by Nazi Germany and its collaborators between 1933 and 1945. Jews were the primary victims. 6 million Jews were murdered. Roma, people with disabilities, and Poles were also targeted for destruction or decimation. Decimation, I apologize for that, for racial, ethnic, or national reasons. Millions more, including gay men, Jehovah's Witnesses, Soviet prisoners of war, and political dissidents, also suffered grievous oppression and death under Nazi tyranny. And whereas the history of the Holocaust offers an opportunity to reflect on the moral responsibilities of individuals, societies, and government, and whereas we, the people of the City of Tallahassee, should always remember the terrible events of the Holocaust and remain vigilant against hatred, persecution, and tyranny. And whereas we, the people of the City of Tallahassee, should actively rededicate ourselves to the principles of individual freedom in a just society. And whereas the days of remembrance have been set aside for the people of the City of Tallahassee to remember the victims of the Holocaust, as well as to reflect on the need for respect of all peoples. And whereas, pursuant to an act of Congress, Public Law 96-388, October 7, 1980, the United States Holocaust Memorial Council designates the days of remembrance of the victims of the Holocaust to be Sunday, April 20th through Sunday, April 27th, 2025, including the day of remembrance known as Yom HaShoah, and I hope I pronounced that correctly, Barbara.
You did, actually.
Okay. April 24th, 2025. Now, therefore, I, John E. Daly, by the authority vested in me as mayor of the City of Tallahassee, do hereby recognize April 20th through April 27th, 2025 as days of remembrance, in memory of the victims of the Holocaust and in honor of the survivors, as well as the rescuers and liberators, and further proclaim that we, as citizens of the City of Tallahassee, should work to promote human dignity and confront hate whenever and wherever it occurs. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Tallahassee to be affixed, and it is signed by Mayor John E. Daly on this day, April 16th, 2025. Barbara?
Thank you very much, Mayor, and everybody, and all the other commissioners. This is a very big honor for our organization. The Holocaust Education Resource Council is also 20 years old right now, so we have really come to many milestones and over the years, and we need to continue education. There is nothing more important than educating everybody about racism and hatred, and we need to address it very much. With that said, one more announcement that there's now a Holocaust Memorial right up the street off of corner of Monroe and Appalachia. When you have time, go see it. It recognizes the Holocaust survivors that made their home in Florida, and there's a lot of names on there to look at and learn from. So thank you very much, everybody here.
Thank you, Barbara.
And before I turn it over to the Mayor Pro Tem for the next presentation, Carol was nice enough to remind me that her father-in-law is the former Mayor Berkowitz of the City of Tallahassee as well. So, and your mother-in-law was my first grade teacher and one of my favorites, but it's great to see y'all again. Ladies and gentlemen, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. We got some good money for some good stories about this first grader. This next proclamation is in honor of the Chain of Parks Art Festival. Is there those who are representing? All right. Please join us. Come down front and please join us. Thank you. All right. All right. From the governing body of the City of Tallahassee, a proclamation. Whereas Lemoyne's Chain of Parks Art Festival celebrating its 25th year as one of Tallahassee's signature annual events and the Big Bend's premier visual art festival. And whereas the Chain of Parks Art Festival is established to present an outdoor festival of high-quality original artwork and entertainment for the enjoyment of our Tallahassee area residents and visitors, while fostering the careers and financial support of local and regional artists. And whereas the Chain of Parks Art Festival, held annually in April, hosts over 150 professional artists from all over the country and brings 35,000 to 40,000 visitors to downtown Tallahassee's Chain of Park for a unique, high-quality cultural experience for all ages, featuring beautiful art, amazing performances, 3D street art, delicious local food, and interactive art experiences. And whereas the two-day festival is an economic stimulus for the community, generating hotel stays, revenue for local artists, visits to local dining and shopping venues, and sales tax generated through art sales, resulting in a significant economic impact of over $1.7 million each year. And whereas on the Thursday before the festival, in what is now a 6-year-long series in partnership with FSU's opening night, the festival brings a presenting artist to speak about their journey to success in art with art students and patrons this year, featuring Andra Douglas. And whereas on Saturday evening of the festival, in partnership with Visit Tallahassee, the festival will bring to the Adderley Amphitheater the band Wilco, known for their eclectic mixture of rock, alternative country, indie sounds, and a passionate fan base. And whereas this concert promises to deliver an engaging musical experience, adding to the festival weekend experience, and whereas for the enjoyment of visitors and residents of Tallahassee, the festival installs a pop-up art exhibition of whimsical upscale art sculptures throughout Tallahassee's downtown 30 days before the festival weekend. And whereas Sunshine Art Magazine, the leading publication for art and craft show exhibitors, promoters, and patrons in the United States, annually publishes the 100 best fine art and design shows in the country. And whereas the Chain of Parks Art Festival has been ranked in Sunshine Artist Magazine's top 100 fine art shows for 10 years running, and was named the #7 Fine Art Festival in the nation and #1 in Florida in 2024. Where's Darryl Jones? You may applaud. Whereas the City of Tallahassee congratulates all of the volunteers, sponsors, artists, and visitors who have contributed to the success and growth of the festival for the past 25 years. Now, therefore, I, John E. Daly, by the authority vested in me as mayor of the City of Tallahassee, do hereby recognize Chain of Parks Art Festival on its 25th anniversary. Congratulations.
That was amazing.
That was a comment.
Well, thank you very much, commissioners, for this, and also for years of support of the festival. This is our 25th year, and we wouldn't have gotten here without the support of the City of Tallahassee and the wonderful partnerships with Parks and Recs, the police department. I mean, we work with so much of the city all the time to get this done. So we're very appreciative of all the community that has supported the festival and helped us get to this point of 25 years. And it's coming up. It's April 26th and 27th. It's going to be a beautiful weekend. I hope you all come down to the downtown Chain of Parks and enjoy a wonderful art festival. Thank you.
And there are 3 sculptures in the hallway out there with the Art in Bloom exhibit that we're doing right now, so go check them out.
The festival is the best, and we're celebrating our 25th. On a side note, Kelly, while I do realize that there are many, many incredible people that have been involved over the years to reach it to this national prominence, it was you and Lori that had the original vision of this art festival here in Tallahassee. Hats off to the Dozier family. Thank you to your commitment. It's absolutely incredible. We appreciate it. I'd like to invite my friends from, where's Charlie Johnson? Charlie here? Come on up, Charlie. Bring everybody up. So our friends at Kimberly Horn that do a lot of work in landscape architecture on behalf of the City of Tallahassee. How you doing? Good to see you. Great to see y'all. Thanks for coming up. Yeah. How are you? Good to see you. Ladies and gentlemen, from the governing body of the City of Tallahassee, a proclamation. Whereas landscape architecture is a multifaceted profession that encompasses the analysis, design, planning, management, and stewardship of the natural and built environment, playing a crucial role in shaping the spaces where people live, work, and play. And whereas landscape architects design and create community master plans, walkable neighborhoods, multimodal transportation networks, green stormwater systems, and accessible spaces such as public plazas, parks, schools, residential common areas, playgrounds, and trails that lead to the active lifestyles in healthy communities. And whereas landscape architects are STEM professionals, leveraging science, technology, engineering, and mathematics knowledge to address the most pressing challenges facing its communities, fostering innovation, research, and leadership in the field. And whereas landscape architects, as licensed professionals, have consistently demonstrated their commitment to public health, safety, and welfare by designing accessible and safe public spaces, promoting active lifestyles, and fostering resilient and sustainable outdoor environments in the City of Tallahassee. And whereas the City of Tallahassee recognizes the vital role of licensed landscape architects in shaping healthy, equitable, safe, and resilient public and private outdoor spaces, contributing to the overall well-being of its citizens, and whereas the City of Tallahassee celebrates the economic benefits derived from licensed landscape architects, acknowledging their role in creating inviting and safe spaces that contribute to the state's economy while simultaneously preserving the environment and ecological systems. Now, therefore, I, John Evans Daly, by the authority vested in me as the mayor of the City of Tallahassee, do hereby recognize April as Landscape Architecture Month and recognize the enduring contributions of landscape architects to the well-being and prosperity of the City of Tallahassee, read into the record in front of each and every one of you here today, signed with my signature, John E. Daly, dated April 16th, 2025. Charlie, it's my honor and privilege to present you with this proclamation.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. How about a couple of words?
I talk so much all the time. I wanted to hand it off to my coworker, Elliot Capers, to get a chance to
Come on,
get to talk.
Elliot. Come on.
Thank you, Commissioners, Mayor. Really appreciative of the proclamation today. You know, as landscape architects, we pride ourselves as being stewards of the land. You know, as architects, so many of us know what architects do. They design buildings that we live and we occupy on a daily basis. Landscape architects are designing the outdoor spaces surrounding the buildings and help mold and shape the outdoor environments that we so occupy and love on a daily basis. So on behalf of the American Society of Landscape Architects, not just here in Florida, but across the United States, this is a very monumental thing, especially the City of Tallahassee, to recognize this. So thank you all, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you. Can we get a picture? Come on. All right, what a wonderful way to start our meeting. Mr. Manager, do we have any announcements to come before the City Commission today?
No, sir.
Do we have any appearances by other governmental entities?
No, sir.
We're on the consent agenda. Has any items been pulled off the consent agenda?
No, sir.
Do we have any public comment?
We do have a speaker on item 8.07.
8.07 has been pulled off the consent by the mayor. I'll come back to that in a second. Any other items have public comment?
No, sir.
Okay, do I have a motion for consent?
So move.
Second.
Probably moved by the Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by Commissioner Richardson. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes unanimously 5-0. We are now back under 8.07, the approval of MUA pre-suite settlement agreement. I'm going to turn it over to the manager, or, excuse me, Madam Attorney.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item number 8.07 is requesting the City Commission's approval of the FAMU Way pre-suit settlement agreement. This is for the FAMU Way Phase 4 project. A pre-suit settlement agreement was entered under the threat of eminent domain for the fee simple acquisition of parcel number 255 that's been negotiated with the property owner, which is 1215 South Adams LLC. Pending final approval by the City Commission, the property owner has agreed to proceed with the city's acquisition of the entire parcel for the appraised value of $525,000 plus fees and costs, including $73,767 for the seller's attorney, $52,324 for the seller's land planner, appraiser, and consulting engineer. The Real Estate Committee reviewed the agreement terms on March 25th and agreed and recommended approval. There will be additional but nominal closing costs. The recommended action is option 1, to approve staff recommendation of a pre-suit settlement agreement under threat of eminent domain for the fee simple acquisition of parcel 255 as part of the FAMU Way Phase 4 project. I believe Robert Culverhouse is here if the commission has any questions.
Excellent. All right, how many speakers do we have on this item?
Mayor, we have a single speaker on the item.
Okay.
That speaker is Q Arnold. And speakers come to the podium here right in front of the mayor. And for this speaker and the other portions of our meeting, speakers have 3 minutes each for remarks. The light in front of the mayor is going to be green while you're speaking and then turn yellow and ultimately red. I'll give you a heads up at 30 seconds.
Name and address for the record, please.
All right. Q Arnold, the address that I'm in reference to is 1215 South Adams Street. I was just coming up representing Big D's Barbecue. We have been a staple in the community for 30 plus years. When we finally decided or contacted Jake and spoke upon the actual 1215 location before we moved there, ideally our goal was to eventually purchase the building from him as well. Right. We hadn't been in a space, a restaurant space, and a lot of our customers wanted to be able to have that space to be able to hang out instead of just grabbing their food off the food truck and going. With this eminent domain situation, we have about 15 subcontractors that actually work at the restaurant. And from there, we're having to finalize and find out how is this going to affect their families, not just our immediate families, but also the families in the community that come there daily and socialize, eat, enjoy the atmosphere. So we're just trying to figure out what's the timeline of how long we have to be out of the location. Where do we go from here type thing. We do have the food trucks, of course, but the things that we've offered at the restaurant space can't be offered in the food truck space because you can't ideally operate a full restaurant out of a food truck. So that's what we're just trying to figure out. What's the timeline? I'm pretty sure the decision's already been made, but so where do we go from here is basically what we're trying to figure out.
Sure. Where is Robert? Robert, if you wouldn't mind sitting down with the owners of the restaurant and help. It's probably longer than what you can answer right here. Just work with them on the timeline of how this is going to work in the whole 9 yards so they could take the appropriate actions to help continue some of the best barbecue in the North Florida area.
Big D.
No question.
Big D.
So,
Know all about it.
yeah, Mr. Roberts going to help you all out and walk you through everything.
That's the only speaker we have on the item, Mayor.
Okay, sounds good. Looking to the commission for direction.
Move staff recommendation, option 1.
I'll second it.
Been probably moved by Commissioner Richardson, seconded by the Mayor Pro Tem. Any further discussion? Commissioner Matlow.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to ask a question, and Mr. Manager, who's best to answer it on the usefulness of a roundabout at that location. You know, it was brought to my attention that most of the traffic backs up on Monroe anyway, if you're coming east through that intersection. Do we have anyone who can speak to the need for a roundabout?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I think our engineering manager, Eric Gooch, probably can best describe it. So this involves the creation of a roundabout in the final segment of FAMU Way going from Adams to Monroe. Eric's part of that team. He leads that team, and I think he can probably best describe kind of the traffic flow and the benefit of that.
Eric, how are you, man?
Good, how are you?
Thank you.
So we've done a traffic study. We looked at the intersection with Monroe and FAMU Way, also Adams Street and FAMU Way. As part of that, we looked at, keeping it in the existing condition it's in, which is a signal, which as you see currently backs up. We're also doing some improvements on FAMU Way in between Adams Street and Monroe Street, which will help with that queuing, to help keep that queuing from coming back that far. We're adding a dedicated left turn lane on FAMU Way to Monroe Street, so eastbound left turn on the Monroe northbound. And then based on our traffic studies, traffic analysis, the roundabout works better than the existing signal does and/or no signal at all.
Okay. And so based on this study, traffic stopped at Monroe won't back up into the roundabout?
Based on this study, we have less of that happening.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Great. Any further questions? Yes, Commissioner Richardson.
Robert, can I ask, were you all, or did anyone give the current tenants of the business notice that this was happening? Did they, because it kind of sounded like she...
Yeah, we've had several public meetings throughout the tenure of this project. The most recent one was at our 30% design plans.
Mm-hmm.
And those discussions were had.
Okay. Do you know if the tenant...
The tenant did attend that meeting, yes, sir.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. That's what I needed to know. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Not a question. I just wanted to kind of remind that we've had, through this process, conversations with Florida A&M. This is one of the entry points into Florida A&M, and I think it was a part of their, they were expecting this to happen because this is what the plan was, to have this one as one of the entry points. So I'm sure it's a part of their master planning as well for that area. So just in my studying of it, I wanted to make sure that we understood that we're not just doing this to be doing it. We're doing it for safety reasons and purposes, and that this is one of those entry points that we met with former President Larry Robinson, when he was president at that time, to let them know that these things, what was happening in and around FAMU, so they too are aware of what was happening on FAMU Way.
Any other comment? Commissioner Matlow.
Thank you, Mayor. I just had one follow-up question. Mr. Manager, does the roundabout require the demolition of the building? I know originally the eminent domain action was for the corner parking lot areas.
Probably, the answer is yes, but I think Eric could probably describe it in more detail.
Yeah, so right now we're shifting the roundabout because we do have that whole property now, and the client, the property owner was agreeable for a full sale, which is going to allow us to get off of and impact less business on the southwest corner. So that's going to impact the property more. We don't know the full extent of that at this time, but we're working to determine the full extent to see if it's going to fully impact that building or not. The likelihood that it will, it is very likely that it will impact that building.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I would just add, if there is an ability to work with the current tenant, I don't know the timeline to demolition, but even after closing, if there's time to tide that over and help them relocate, I think would be beneficial. Thank you.
Motion on the table made for staff recommendation by the Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by Commissioner Richardson. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes unanimously 5-0. Do we have any other items on the consent agenda?
No, sir.
All right, moving on to City Commission appointments. 10.01, Environmental Board appointment. Mr. Cook.
Thank you, Mayor. The Environmental Board has both full member seats as well as alternates, and Zach Sauter resigned from his position as an alternate on the Environmental Board to be appointed as a full member. That left a vacancy in the alternate seat, seat 8. So today's recommendation is to appoint Jonas Goldstein to fill seat 8. That term would begin immediately and continue through October 31st of 2026.
Okay, do we have any public comment on this item?
No, sir.
Colleagues,
Move staff recommendation, option number 1.
staff recommendation has been moved by Commissioner Richardson. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mayor Pro Tem. Any further comment? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes unanimously, 5-0. Item 10.02, Mr. Clerk.
Item 10.02 concerns the Tallahassee-Leon County Minority, Women, and Small Business Enterprise Citizen Advisory Committee, which has 2 seats whose terms will expire on April 30th of 2025. The recommended action is to reappoint Colette Washington to seat 2 and to reappoint Jaworski Vance to seat 4. If reappointed, both of them will have terms commencing on May 1st of 2025, expiring on April 30th of 2027.
All right, do we have any public comment on this item?
No, sir.
All right,
Move acceptance of the recommended action.
been properly moved by the Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by Commissioner Richardson. Any further comment? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes unanimously, 5-0. Do we have any other appointments coming before us, Mr. Clerk?
We do not.
Introduction of ordinance 11.01, Madam Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item number 11.01 is the introduction of ordinance number 25-Z-10, an ordinance of the City of Tallahassee, Florida, designating as Office Residential 1, OR1, on the official zoning map from Residential Preservation 1, RP1, on .60 acres at the intersection of Bradford Road and East Delview Drive, providing for a conflict and severability and providing an effective date. The recommended action is option 1, introduce the ordinance number 25-Z-10 and set the first and only public hearing for May 14, 2025 at 6 p.m. in the City of Tallahassee City Commission chambers at City Hall. Any ex parte disclosures concerning this item are available via the hyperlink included in the agenda item as published in the board doc system.
Clerk, do we have any public comment on this item?
No, sir.
Colleagues,
Move option number 1 is recommended by staff.
staff recommendation has been properly moved by Commissioner Richardson, seconded by the Mayor Pro Tem. Any further comment? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes unanimously, 5-0. 11.02, Madam Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item number 11.02 is the introduction of ordinance number 25-0-09, an ordinance of the City of Tallahassee adopting a small-scale amendment to the 2030 Tallahassee-Leon County Comprehensive Plan to change the future land use map designation from residential preservation land use category to the suburban land use category for .60 acres at the intersection of Bradford Road and East Delview Drive, providing for severability and conflicts and providing an effective date. The recommended action is option 1, introduce ordinance number 25-0-09 and set the first and only public hearing for May 14, 2025 at 6 p.m. in the City of Tallahassee City Commission chambers at City Hall.
Mr. Clerk, do we have any public comment on this item?
No, sir.
Colleagues, looking for direction.
Move for option 1.
Second.
Been properly moved. Staff recommendation by the Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by Commissioner Richardson. Any further comment? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes unanimously, 5-0. Any other ordinances that need introduction tonight, Madam Attorney?
No, sir.
We're on policy formation and direction, 12.01. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This item is regarding the removal of static billboards in exchange for digital variable billboards. The city's sign code incentivizes the removal of these static billboards, 5 to be exact, in exchange for a single digital billboard. This request seeks your approval to remove 10 static billboards, and those are two-sided, and allow for 2 digital billboards. Our Growth Management Director, John Reddick's here if you have any questions on this item.
Excellent. Mr. Clerk, do we have any public comment on this item?
No, sir, we do not.
All right, colleagues, looking for direction.
Move staff recommendation, option number 1, Mr. Mayor.
Been properly moved by Commissioner Richardson. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mayor Pro Tem. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes 5-0. Item number 12.02.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Manager.
This seeks your approval for supplemental appropriation of $215,000 from the State Law Enforcement Forfeiture Fund and to adjust administrative thresholds for delegated utilization of state and federal law enforcement forfeiture funds from $25,000 to $50,000 per transaction. Florida law allows these kind of proceeds from the forfeiture and real and personal property, including currency and vehicles, to be used as supplemental appropriation for TPD department needs. TPD requests these funds of $215,000 for a variety of activities, including equipment and training. In addition, as I mentioned before, this item seeks your approval to adjust the purchasing threshold from $25,000 to $50,000. Chief Revel's here if you have any questions on this item.
Excellent. Mr. Clerk, do we have any public comment on this item?
No, sir.
All right, colleagues, looking for direction, questions, comment.
Move staff recommendation, option number 1, Mr. Mayor.
And I second that.
Option number 1's been properly moved by Commissioner Richardson, seconded by the Mayor Pro Tem. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes unanimously, 5-0. Item number 12.03.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Manager.
This item seeks your approval to rename a segment of Branch Street located between West Tharp Street and West 10th Avenue to Best and Brightest Way. This item comes at the request of World Class Schools of Leon County, which serves as a liaison between the Greater Tallahassee Chamber of Commerce and the Leon County School District. For the past 20 years, World Class Schools of Leon County has overseen the Best and Brightest Awards program, recognizing over 2,800 high school seniors and 700 eighth graders with scholarships for their academic excellence and community service. This street renaming has been requested to honor 20 years of the Best and Brightest Awards program and the past and future recipients of the awards. In this case, the renaming receives support from adjacent property owners, including Leon County School Board, and does not affect any other property addresses since the others are addressed on other roadways. If approved, the segment from West Tharp Street to West 10th Avenue would officially be renamed Best and Brightest Way, effective May 30th, 2025. We're seeking your approval of this item, and our Growth Management Director, John Reddick, is here if you have any questions.
Excellent. Do we have any public comment on this item, Mr. Clerk?
No, sir.
Excellent. I am proud that this is before us today. I have enjoyed working on this. John, thanks for your hard work. I appreciate the school board with their recommendation as well. And I think that I hope everyone will join me at the Best and Brightest 20th anniversary coming up. It's a great program. Looking for direction, comment?
Well, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to
Commissioner
mention to Mr. and Mrs. Sachs, Ron Sachs and his wife, they were the initiators of the Best and Brightest.
Yep.
Those 20 years ago. And here we are 20 years later, and we're naming a street in recognition of their efforts to recognize the young people in our schools that are doing a phenomenal job. And so I would move that we accept the staff recommendation on option number 1 for the street renaming.
Staff recommendation's been properly moved by Commissioner Richardson. Is there a second?
I would second it.
Seconded by the Mayor Pro Tem for comment. Mayor Pro Tem.
And may all those individuals who have been designated or recommended for Best and Brightest and have been able to receive funding, scholarships and what have you for that, may they also take pride in the fact that this program is in our community and that we're memorializing it with the street being named after it.
Excellent. Any further comment? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes unanimously, 5-0. Item number 12.04, Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The City Commission, you guys voted to have an update on the Multimodal Transportation District, or often referred to as MMTD. Wayne Tedder, Assistant City Manager Wayne Tedder, is very familiar with this subject. He's prepared a presentation. It highlights the location of the MMTD, which would be considered an overlay in our zoning. It does represent about 18 miles of our 105 square mile city, and so it's concentrated into our downtown urban area. It has a lot of details that are incentives for development, incentives for density, as well as requirements of developers to ensure pedestrian friendly environment. And so we're going to walk through a full presentation, Mr. Mayor, and Wayne will share that with us.
Tedder, good to see you, sir.
Thank you. Good to be here, and good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to provide this update. The timing works very well with some of the work that Artie and his team is working for the comp plan updates. as ATN has sent you all comments regarding the effectiveness of the MMTD. So I think the data that we will provide will demonstrate how effective the MMTD has become over time. And I'd like to first start off with the primary intent of the MMTD, and it's to really just to provide an opportunity to promote infill development within the city of Tallahassee. But to do that, you have to connect our land development regulations with our infrastructure, with our mass transit, our bike and pedestrian facilities. What started the discussion of the MMTD was during the City of Tallahassee and Leon County's review of the comprehensive plan and evaluation and appraisal report. That was in 2007. And out of that conversation, they were seeing a lot of single-family development in the outskirts of town, and they were really looking for opportunities to develop infill development within the City of Tallahassee. So the City Commission directed staff to bring back an MMTD district. We did that, and in 2009, the comprehensive plan was updated to give the framework for the MMTD. In 2011, we actually were able to cobble together the implementing land development regulations that basically put the nuts and bolts of how we accomplished the MMTD objectives. And Commissioners, this was not an easy task. You would think the development community would have embraced this, but quite frankly, it was just the opposite, because our development community at the time really was not focused on infill development. They were focused on single-family, low-density development in the outskirts of our community. So that is why when staff developed the ordinance, we told the commission, said, look, give us about a year to implement the ordinance, see where the problems are that we need to come back and address. And that's exactly what we did. It took about 2 years to put that ordinance together. And basically the ordinance, the update to that ordinance focused on about three main things. First being the providing better tree protection, providing more clarity on the sidewalk widths, and then lastly, streamlining the process. When you look at the boundary of the MMTD, the intent was to connect either densely populated areas or areas that were emerging as densely populated areas. So we connected Tallahassee State College, Griffin Heights, Midtown, Frenchtown, South Side, FSU, all with the downtown. And that resulted, as the city manager indicated, as an 18.1 square mile boundary. When you look at our downtown, and I think this is kind of puts a lot of things in context, the magnitude and the location of our downtown and how this district kind of wraps around our downtown. We've always considered FSU and FAMU a part of our downtown, so it kind of just visualizes that one step for you. What's important to recognize, and this is a really interesting information, is that when you look at the MMTD in its totality, and you back out all the lands that are designated for state, universities, city, county, when you back out all those properties, you result in an area of 10 square miles. So that results in about 9.5% of our entire city area that we targeted for infill development. And I'm going to come back to that 9.5% near the end of the presentation. So what we had to do, we had to connect a lot of, again, going back to our different types of mobility, we had to connect our bike ped master plan that was integrated in the MMTD district. And this is an illustration indicating our current sidewalks throughout the district. And as you can tell, it looks pretty good. We got quite a bit of coverage, but there's still work that we have to do to connect areas, and talking about schools and where the densely populated areas are. If you look at our major project priority list for sidewalks, and you just take the top 20 and you skim through them, 16 of those projects, the top 16, are located within this district. So again, it shows you the prioritization of trying to put the sidewalks where the people are. Bicycle infrastructure, that's just as important as some of the other sidewalks. This gives you a clear indication of what we have existing in terms of our bicycle facilities. We look at opportunities between development who comes in and new roadway projects and amendments to roadway projects to try to accommodate bicycle paths of varying types. We also connected our city greenways master plan. The City Commission approved the update in 2015, and we made sure that that was integrated into the MMTD as well. And what you see is, on this map, is a representation. The green lines are those greenway projects that we have completed. The red are those that are proposed and planned, and some of the red are actually already in construction today. Mass transit, the service throughout the district is critical. And what I do know is that Star Metro has done an exceptional job identifying routes and constantly evaluating to see where routes and stops can be improved. It's a very data-driven process. And what you see on this map is all the routes within the district, and the little black dots are the stops throughout. So you got pretty good coverage for the mass transit. And as indicated prior to 2011, the city was really unable to provide significant infill opportunities, and that was basically due to our land development regulations. Our land development code treated every area in our community the same, whether it was in our downtown versus our outside of our downtown areas. The codes were the same. And again, as I mentioned, the development community, they really did not grasp urban infill construction at that time. And so simply stated, in order to achieve what the goal was for urban infill, we had to modify our land development regulations. And we started with stormwater. We exempted our single, two-family, and three-family homes from any stormwater requirements. We also exempted redevelopment projects where they did not create increased impervious surface area. We exempted them from stormwater requirements. And you would think it's common sense now, but that was a very big deal back at the time of this ordinance. We also provided reduced parking standards. We took from projects, land uses within the MMTD, and we reduced those standards anywhere from 25 to 75% of those standards outside of the district. And on top of that, as we were trying to promote a redevelopment of properties, we gave them another 25% reduction of required parking. And in our downtown boundary, we absolutely removed all parking requirements. Transportation concurrency. This is something I always hate to talk about because it significantly hindered our ability to have infill development. And basically what development was required to do is if you impacted a roadway, you were going to pay substantial cost to fix that roadway to bring it up to a level of service standard that we said was important. That in itself stopped many developments in our downtown area. It was a very costly proposition, and I saw many developments during this time just basically walk out and say, we're not going to do it, we can't afford it. So as a result, the commission approved some revised standards. Basically said, look, we're not going to focus on collecting mitigation dollars. What we want you to focus on is building the infrastructure necessary for our MMTD. That's sidewalks and on occasion, mass transit facilities. We also had a standard in our downtown that required every single site to have 40% green space. Every single site. And that is very, very inconsistent with an urban design standard. What you see in an urban area is streetscape, higher density intensity along the street, and then pockets of green space that are in and around those urban areas. We also had to amend our land development regulations, and some of the key things that we amended basically require the buildings to be pulled up to the street and parking to be located to the rear or to the side of the buildings. The idea was to have active frontage along the roadway. We require building entrances to be located or oriented towards the street, and transparency is required at the ground level. We required wide sidewalks, and also active uses are typically required at the street frontage. Street trees, that's something we always require, but in some instances, and you'll see in some examples I provide you, you don't see trees, and that's because we also have to deal with the infrastructure below the ground. And in some instances, we have underground electric, which precludes us from being able to do street trees. This is probably the best example I can give you in terms of a large transportation facility that's provided during the redevelopment of the Target site on Tennessee Street. The developer actually constructed that for the city. When I talk about the level of investment for public infrastructure, it's pretty amazing from my perspective. When you look at 36 public sidewalks that have been completed during that time, and actually since 2017, so there's a period of time we don't even have the calculations for. And since 2017, we've constructed 7 miles of upgraded sidewalks, 5.67 miles of new multifamily paths, and 6.7 miles of new bike lanes. And I've seen constantly our Star Metro folks putting in covered bus stops and seating areas throughout the district. This is an awesome project, Southside Transit Facility, currently under construction. This provides a significant visual effect for the south side of our community. What we envisioned as a result of this project is that other development, other projects, other properties will develop to this level in that particular area. Magnolia Drive mixed-use trail connects Appalachia Parkway all the way to South Adams Street. Basically, this project takes deep ditches on either side of the roadway, closes those up, and provides sidewalks for the communities on both sides. This is a significant enhancement of walkability within this area. Our South Monroe, South Adams Sense of Place initiative. This encompasses seven roadways that connect South Adams to South Monroe Street. Those streets include, I think I jumped over real quick, FAMU Way, Harrison, Pershing, Jennings, Palmer Avenue, Perkins, Kestner, Magnolia. Each one of these streets will have landscape, sidewalks, and underground electric. And while Orange Avenue, Meridian, Sense of Place Park is not a transportation element, it goes right into the fact of what I was telling you. In an urbanized area, you want to have concentrated green spaces in the middle of urbanized areas. So we expect, again, densities and intensities to increase around this intersection. And that's about to start construction as well. And I believe the question we've been asked is, how did we establish the widths of sidewalks within the MMTD? And we first started with looking at our national standards. And from that point, the national standards set the conversation for, specifically for Tallahassee. And as I mentioned to you, between 2011 and 2013, we were working with a group of 37 individuals. And most of those individuals were really development-oriented individuals. And so we put the test to them, said, when we're looking at Tallahassee, what do we want the width of the sidewalks to be within this district? Their recommendations, and go through these, where you see the red lines, those are our major thoroughfares. They have the highest volumes of cars and potentially the highest volumes of people. The sidewalks were recommended to be 10 feet wide. The blue areas are our secondary thoroughfares. They move quite a bit of traffic. The intensity of the zoning is pretty significant along those corridors. Those are required to be 8 foot wide, or recommended to be. And then the local, which the roadways you can't see in between all of those, the sidewalks in those areas were required to be 6 feet wide. That recommendation from that user group was forwarded to the City Commission, and the City Commission approved those standards. And that was in 2013. And to date, those standards have not been challenged or deviated from in most examples. So what I'd like to do is kind of walk through a few examples that kind of gives you the flavor of what we've been requiring throughout the community. If you look at Stern Street, a local street, this is the before conditions, and this is the after. So significant infill and the 6 foot wide sidewalks in the corridor. This is Pine Street, another local street, required a 6 foot wide sidewalk as part of that approval. Brevard Street, this is at the intersection of a collector roadway. This is the next higher level roadway in Martin Luther King, which is a local designation in that area before and after. Jefferson Street, this was an addition to a sorority home. And while it may not look different from the next picture, they were required with an addition of that facility to provide a 6 foot green space and a 6 foot wide, an 8 foot wide sidewalk. And then when we go to our major thoroughfares, this is South Monroe along South Monroe before and after. So for the entire block, this development provides a 10 foot wide, very walkable sidewalk. Then on Thomasville Road, here's another example of a modest addition to an existing development, the before conditions and after with a 10 foot wide sidewalk. And so when we talk about the successes of the district and we talk about the area of the MMTD, every time I say MMTD, I'm going to replace it with 9.5% of our city's area. So when I say 57% of the net increase of multifamily developments, they've occurred in 9.5% of our city area. 30% of the net increase of all dwelling units have occurred in 9.5% of our city. 7 1- and 2-bedroom apartments. We talk about redevelopment opportunities. They were demolished, they came back, and the net result was only 209 additional dwelling units, but it included enough bedrooms for 2,800 people. 54% of the city's increase in commercial square footage occurred in 9.5% of the city's area. 49% of the city's increase of institutional square footage occurred inside the MMTD. That's to be expected because of the universities. Industrial uses, this is kind of going the opposite direction. It was reduced by 110,000 square feet in the MMTD. That's exactly what we want to happen, is put the right uses in the right place in our community. And then lastly, 40% of the city's population growth has occurred within 9.5% of our city. I think the data speaks for itself. It's exceptionally beneficial to our community for our infill development project. And then I'm going to leave on the last slide, Gain Street, and then goes back to our public investment. Project began, I believe, in 2013, if I'm not mistaken, finished about 3 years later. That was a $28 million public investment within our community. To date, almost $1 billion of existing private reinvestment in that area has occurred. Significant opportunities for our city. And that does not even include at least 7 developments that have not been included in that total, but are under construction today. So that I do have John and Artie, they're charged with our day-to-day implementation of the district and coordination and making sure it's implemented in the appropriate ways. And if you got any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
Let the record reflect that Wayne Tedder will never be accused of not being thorough in his presentations. Thank you very much, Mr. Tedder. We appreciate it.
Great job.
This is an information-only item. Mr. Clerk, do we have any public comment on this?
Yes, Mayor, we have one speaker.
Okay.
That is Mike Brazine.
Okay. Thanks for joining us. Your name and address for the record, please.
Pleasure to be here. Mike Brazine. I'm at 1401 North Randolph Circle, and I'm representing the Alliance of Tallahassee Neighborhoods tonight. Like all of you, I want Tallahassee to be an even more livable city. I don't mean that we have to have fancy projects like the High Line in New York City or the downtown pedestrian mall in Boulder. No, I'm looking for public places and byways that are useful, safe, comfortable, and interesting in ways that draw us to them for walking, biking, and enjoying our Tallahassee sense of place. I believe the MMTD has the potential to satisfy those wishes. The report that you just heard brings out many of the MMTD successes. But to build on those successes, we have to be honest with ourselves. While not pointing it out specifically, I felt that the report is about 75% on Collegetown and 25% on the rest of the MMTD. That's a significant problem. Collegetown is a one-off situation for achieving many of the MMTD goals. Its location and influx of college students were major drivers of its success. We can see from our longtime hopes for an 18-hour downtown and a vibrant midtown that accomplishing not just the density and goals, or density, the density goals, but also the resulting livability goals can be extremely challenging. The agenda item presents the MMTD as a success based on the amount of overall development and the percent of development in the MMTD compared to the rest of the city. ATN has a couple of problems with that. First, the analysis fails to note factors other than the MMTD that have contributed to the development and redevelopment, such as the increase in institutional uses is driven by the expansion of FSU to the areas adjoining the campus. The future land use categories within the MMTD allow significantly higher densities than those further outside the center of the city. The increase in multifamily units is primarily student housing. This may be partially attributed to the MMTD-based transportation concurrency exemptions, but is also significantly attributable to the infrastructure improvements along Gain Street and FAMU Way. Second concern is the analysis fails to address the consistency of the MMTD development standards with the standards in the comprehensive plan, and the land development code. Some examples are, have the comp plan targets for transit and walkability been achieved? What variances have been issued and how have they impacted the intended development characteristics? What amendments in the land development code are needed to better achieve the goals of the MMTD? You haven't heard about those things. The MMTD has proven itself to be a useful tool for achieving infill,
You're at 3 minutes.
Thank you.
boosting livability in Tallahassee. Let's learn from our successes
Thank
and our
you very
mistakes
much.
and challenges.
Thank you.
To do an even better job as
Mr.
we
President,
move
thank
forward.
you.
And thank you. Thank you.
All right, this is
Thank you.
information only item. Do we have another speaker by chance, Mr. Clerk?
No, sir.
All right, let's open it up for discussion. Commissioner Matt Lowe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First off, thank you, Mr. Tedder, for that presentation. You should be very proud of the work over the last 15 years. I think it shows in all of the images we saw today. I do want to talk about, my interest in bringing this item forward is looking at small tweaks in how we can improve the overall goal of the MMTD. I think we saw, sometimes it's very effective, as we saw it in a lot of photographs and today, and sometimes it's not quite as effective. I would point to the Starbucks Magnolia drive-through facilities, Mission Barbecue, that sort of thing. It seemed like, we had a vision for walkability in that area that the MMTD lays out, and then the private sector had a different vision because of the amount of road traffic on Magnolia Road and what they saw the market value of that parcels is. And so there are three things I wanted to consider addressing. One, you mentioned parking and the parking reductions. I think they've been very successful. I think we should take that to the next level and eliminate the parking mandates in the entire MMTD as a first step. I think that'll encourage the type of building we say we are looking for and decrease the barriers for building within the MMTD. The second is, and maybe you can speak to this, I brought up at the last meeting the sidewalk widths. And my question is, does it make sense that our sidewalk width is dictated by how many cars are on a roadway versus how many pedestrians we want to see on a roadway? So looking at what was presented today along Gain Street, Madison, St. Augustine, where you had the 6 and 8 foot sidewalks, those are going to be pedestrian super heavy because of the type of development we're encouraging, where vehicular heavy roads like Tennessee Street, which would require the 10 foot, are more cut through traffic. They're state highways. So I'm wondering if there's been a look at just the thought behind where we're building the highest buildings, we should have the widest sidewalks, and we don't necessarily want to encourage pedestrians to be where the most vehicular traffic is. Does that make sense, or can anyone speak to that?
Tedder.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner, for the questions. Let me you've said things that were kind of somewhat contradictory in one regard regarding car traffic and zoning. Let me go to the example of the Midtown area where we know it is a thoroughfare. It has a lot of cars that come through. It's anticipated to have a lot of pedestrians, even though there may not be a level that you would see in College Town right now. The zoning is very intense along that corridor. So you don't have to look at just the roadway. You've got to look at the zoning too. And we envision that an area, and it's not staff envisioning it. We have a master plan, a sense of place document that the community said they envision a walkable area in that community. And so everything that we have done from that point forward was to make sure we have standards in place to make sure we have the best walkable conditions in that environment.
Okay, so Thomasville Road aside, looking at that area, as we build a walkable district, First Avenue, Second Avenue, Third Avenue won't dictate those higher level of sidewalks, though that is an entire district, and the density that could be created in that area. So what I'm asking is, the roadway particular, and I understand the Thomasville Road impacts and all those sorts of things. Putting that aside, looking at, say, and I use Magnolia as an example of where we've added that infrastructure, which I think is underutilized. I think if we drive by there, we rarely see as much, because of the type of buildings that were built. And I'm just wondering if there's any flexibility or thought to, so looking at College Town, if we had required 10-foot sidewalks on all of those streets, because we know the size of the development that's coming. And I understand your point on Thomasville Road is that's the same scale of development that likely may be planned one day, I believe is what you're saying, and would require that sidewalk. But tying the sidewalk width to the road traffic, I'm failing to see the sense in that. Like, wouldn't it make more sense to look at different areas where we know we want to encourage those wider pedestrian sidewalks that aren't tied to just a road type everywhere unilaterally?
Commissioners, what you see across the country is along these major thoroughfares is where you're going to have the higher density and intensity uses. That's where everything is going to be oriented along those major thoroughfares. Those side streets are kind of like, I don't want to say an afterthought, but they're not as visibly and as intense as those projects along the major corridors. So regardless of the cars, by nature of the zoning and the types of intensity that will be along that corridor, you will need wide sidewalks throughout that district to make it a walkable environment. I mean, so that's what we've been focused on, is where we expect the most people to occur is where we have the widest sidewalks. And that's just as basic in terms of planning that I can get to in terms of why we do what we do for these areas. And you're absolutely right. Some of the side streets, they don't have as much traffic that comes through, and that's why the sidewalks scale down with those side streets.
So what I'm suggesting is we induce demand on side streets for pedestrian districts and corridors, much like we've done. FAMU Way wouldn't have dictated, wouldn't be a roadway that had that much traffic, but it has wider sidewalks. So I'm just looking at, as we're planning walkable districts, separating pedestrians from traffic. And then the third issue I wanted to raise on that is just facade transparency. And I think maybe this is being looked at. Sometimes it makes sense for every establishment to have a window depending on what they're building, but not every single space, an entire corridor is always going to be commercial, window-facing retail. Even if we would like to see that, I don't think that makes sense. And looking at the different ways we can do that. So what I would like to see us do, commissioners, is looking at the district as a whole and bringing all the stakeholders led by staff back to the table to put together a citizens committee, bring the cyclists and pedestrians who have the most use on the sidewalks, bring the business owners and builders who have built in the areas, the residents, neighborhoods in the MTD, and bring back recommendations on improvement for the MMTD. And I'll make that a motion.
Second. Motion on the table, seconded by Commissioner Porter. Comments by the Mayor Pro Tem?
I actually have a question, Wayne. Is that not what occurred with previously, and that's how we adopted this and got to where we are? I just hate for us to keep reinventing the wheel. I know that we're going to grow. Well, I get that. But when citizens come together and do this, and then we do what they've asked us to do, and then a new group of citizens come along and want to undo what has been done, it's just, I'm just not understanding what's going to be different now than what was done in the past.
Commissioners, you're absolutely correct. We did have a large group that gave us input on the crafting of the ordinance. And what I will say is that a lot of times when we do these large things, you hear a lot of noise. Okay, so we did that in 2011, and we adjusted the ordinance to fit the noise and to address the noise at that time. Since that time, we have not heard a major outcry of issues throughout this district. In fact, it's probably more difficult for staff because we got so many things that we're trying to now change from a suburban type pattern to an urban pattern that we're having to navigate and coordinate and maneuver to get the best product that we can. It's not always perfect, but we have the goal that we're trying to achieve for an urbanized district. And so John and his team and Artie and heck, everybody over here probably works on these projects as they're coming through because there's so many conflicts that we have to deal with. And so since 2013, I honestly asked John and Artie this the other day. I said, have we ever seen a project that we've just turned away because they can't meet some of the standards? And the answer is no, with the exception of those folks who want to have like a car lot, which is a suburban type development. You don't see those types of car sales lots in a very urban environment. We've offered alternatives. We always do that. But we've not seen an outcry of anything that's really substantially broken with this ordinance.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem, you still have the floor.
I was just saying thank you.
All right, Commissioner Porter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Wayne, so can you just remind me, so since 2009, have there been, what updates have been made to the plan or the ordinance or anything that supports it?
There have been no changes to the comprehensive plan policies since 2009. I believe there may be some tweaking that Artie is doing. He'll have to speak to that as part of the land use and mobility element. For the land development code, there have been no changes since 2013.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Matlow, you had another question?
Thank you. Yeah, just for clarification on the previous comments, the intent of the motion is not to undo anything. It's to look for an improvement. Certainly, we can all agree that improvements can be made. No product is finalized and the best ever. And if there are recommendations that can be made for improvements, and I personally believe improvements can be made that will encourage more development with parking standards. I think improvements that can be made that will make pedestrians safer, that we just kind of overlooked that, based on the code isn't, to me, the best way to do it. I think Thomasville Road example, the density would still dictate a 10-foot sidewalk if we're doing it based on density, but I hate to see us building 5-foot, mega block developments and only putting 6-foot sidewalks. It makes sense that they're not having parking already, and most of the students particularly are going to be walking, and we should look to those areas to have the widest sidewalks. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Sure. The motion on the table to create a working group. I'm going to respectfully not support the motion. I agree. We have been down this path. We've done some great work. We currently also have the Midtown Working Group that is still up and running. We have the Bike Ped Working Group that is still up and running. We have great organizations like ATN and that are up and running, that are contributing. And we've got the great work that our engineers are doing as well. So I am comfortable where we are and where we're going in particular, so I'm not going to support the motion on the table. When it comes to parking minimums, that is going to be a huge one that will fill the chambers. And I got to tell you, I'm extremely hesitant about getting rid of parking minimums. Let's look at Midtown. If we don't take a holistic approach to transportation, and we're setting up the multimodal districts for a reason, because we want to have a mass transit system that people use and that is effective in these districts. But if we just get rid of parking minimums, what's going to happen is it's going to push Midtown parking into Lafayette Park. And boy, this entire chamber will be packed to the gills, in Midtown in particular. Then you go on the other street, the other side of Monroe Street, and if we get rid of the parking minimums on Monroe Street up and down, it's going to push everybody into Lafayette Park and all up and down the corridor right there leading downtown. And I don't think the answer is a blanket get rid of parking minimums. We have increasing density down in College Town for a reason, because I once heard that like 1/3 to 40% of all college students at Florida State live within a 1.5 mile radius of Gain Street. We have that density for a reason. We need to continue to encourage pedestrian traffic, mass transit up and down Gain Street. How can we move people up and down Gain Street from literally Doak Campbell Stadium all the way to Cascades Park? With downtown, with Gain Street, with the Civic Center, College of Business, main campus. That's where I think we should be focused. I think of Denver and the 16th Street corridor, the mass transit rail that's free. I look at what Gainesville's doing in their downtown district with autonomous cars and some of the trials that they're doing. Y'all have heard me say this for a while. This is the direction I think we should be going and thinking, not just getting rid of parking minimums. I don't think that works in our community until we have the broader conversation about mass transit. Now, I will tell you, Mr. Manager, that my youngest got back from a raw band concert in Orlando at 12:45 Saturday morning. And he was hungry. I took him over to Whataburger at 1 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday morning, and it was packed. Midtown was packed. We need wide sidewalks, specifically in these districts where we're experiencing heavy foot traffic, but also at night. It's a public safety issue along with a transportation and a pedestrian movement issue. So I am all in favor of the wide sidewalks. I am in favor of the wide sidewalks on the side streets as well as we access, because the district will change, and how we move about between these, different restaurants and bars will, and bookstores and everything will change as well. And so we need to keep that in mind and not take the other streets off either, because it was great, but it was packed. And so I do believe in the wide sidewalks. I do believe in the standards that we have in place. Many times these businesses also benefit, because if it's a public works project, a lot of times the cost of the infrastructure that usually would be associated with the private industry is absorbed when we do the work. Now, if it gets sidetracked, then it falls back on the shoulders of the private industry. But we have great benefits built in place that allows us to do public work improvements along with Blueprint, along with the county, along with the state, while at the same time being able to help cover the cost of the infrastructure improvements. Great presentation. Commissioner Matlow, I see where you're going. I appreciate your comments, but I am comfortable where we are, and I won't be supporting the motion on the table. Commissioner Porter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I ask, what do you have in mind for what the next steps would be as far as the questions and vision that you just expressed?
Well, I think that I'm really looking forward to hearing what the Midtown Working Group, along with our professional staff, have in place. Specifically, when we look at Midtown, let's take from basically Los Robles all the way down to where Thomasville Road and Monroe Street meet, that part of Midtown. We have got this incredible opportunity that's going to happen with the redevelopment of what is currently the police station. And I think that that is going to be an incredible anchor point to really launch 2.0, that section of Midtown. You have the opportunity to connect Lake Ella green space all the way to Lafayette Park. I mean, we can all vision the linear connection. You have the opportunity to connect everything around Lake Ella, walkable down into the main shopping district as well. That parcel is going to be crucial. How is that redeveloped? What does that look like? Is it mixed use? Do we add in a mass transit system? If I had my druthers, I think it makes sense for us to think about some type of a parking structure in the area, probably off of Monroe Street, though, that services both sides. We all know that we're experiencing significant traffic issues with the senior center in parking, but also in Midtown as well. And then I envisioned a state-of-the-art, really cool, iconic mass transit system that, say, starts on 7th Avenue, turns right down Monroe Street, services all the business there, comes up Thomasville Road from Monroe Street, and makes the triangle. Continuously moving people throughout the district with a central parking area where people can park, get out, walk, or take a mass transit. I think too many times we approach mass transit throughout the entire community, and I think what we need to do is start taking the bites here and there in specific areas that have organically grown up, College Town, Midtown. And I think that when we create those iconic mass transit systems that help move people around, move people up and down Gain Street, move people around the Midtown area, I think that's where we have success. That was very long-winded. To answer your question, I think that we go back and we look at Midtown, built upon the successes that we truly have right now. I agree with the standards that we have right now. Start really looking forward to the redevelopment of the police station site and how that will be the anchor in the Midtown area.
Okay. Thank you. No, I mean, I'm on board with what a lot of what you're saying, and I think that's in the spirit of what this request would be. And I just want to make sure that this doesn't die here right now with this conversation. So I'm not making a motion right now for anything in particular, but I want to keep having those conversations. And I think I'd like to see a plan for what having those conversations is going to look like so that we don't ignore the need and the vision.
Absolutely. And in the spirit, I completely agree with what Commissioner Matlow is trying to do overall. But with what I just described to you, I think that we should leave it in the hands of the Midtown Working Group that's been working for several years, because they live, work, and play right there. They're familiar with the issues, and they've been taking a great lead thus far. I don't think we need to create another committee on top of the committee that's already looking at the work right now. That's all. That's all. Commissioner Matlow.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And you know, the need, in my view, for the committee is separate and apart from the entire Midtown conversation. I think the greatest need is in College Town. I think it is along Magnolia, and also the redevelopment in Tennessee, around Tennessee. I think, you know, all of these things that encompass the 18 square miles, that is the MMTD. So I don't want this ask to be pigeonholed into Midtown, because I do think the Midtown Working Group, and I think that's going to progress on its own right. Anyway, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I appreciate that, and I do agree that we need to continue to work. I would argue that each district is different and should be treated differently. In Midtown, we have Thomasville Road that is currently one lane heading one direction, one lane heading the other direction with a turn lane in the middle. Magnolia is a 6-lane road where we're talking down there by Mission Barbecue with a turn lane in the middle. Two totally different approaches to transportation, two totally different approaches to those areas and how we access businesses. So I do think that on the micro level, we can approach and probably have a little bit more success when we look at and then you have Gain Street, which is one way both, but you have the college kid influence and how different mobilities and the whole 9 yards. So I think that when we look individually at these areas, we might have some better success. Commissioner Matlow.
Thank you, Mayor. And I'd be happy to bring them back individually, but I think that's the point of the conversation, is the broad scope of the MMTD overlaps both of those areas, and they are being held to the same standard. And I think there are tweaks that could lead to better outcomes for the community. Thank you.
Got it. And we have studied that with a working group, which has got us to where we are. Motion on the table by Commissioner Matlow, seconded by Commissioner Porter. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
Motion fails respectfully, 3-2, with the mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and Commissioner Richardson in dissent. But we hear the message loud and clear, Commissioner Matlow, and we'll all keep working together. Mayor Pro Tem.
I also want to, as Commissioner Matlow said, we don't want to pigeonhole. We got to look at the whole thing. Just because there are trends in one area right now doesn't mean that those trends are not developing in other areas. Much of this conversation has dealt with north of 90, and there are things that are happening on the southern and the southwest ends of town that will also need to be considered as well. So as we move forward, then we want to make sure that we're looking at all areas and not having spot development, spot zoning, because what is today, as Wayne has just shown us from 2003, what Gain Street looked like and what it looks like now, I don't think anybody had a clue that that's what it was going to look like, but you had to have some stuff in place to help along the way. So I just want to make sure that we don't just focus on Midtown, we don't just focus on Thomasville Road, we focus on Tallahassee, all of it, and make it a comprehensive look and do our best so that the next group of citizens who come together will be able to follow what we did and understand why we did what we did and help to do the improvement that you're referring to, Commissioner Matlow.
Mayor Pro Tem, is that a motion for option 1, accept the staff update?
It is.
Okay, is there a second to the motion?
I second
Commissioner Richardson?
Mayor, with a comment.
I got Commissioner Porter first. I'm going to come right back to you, Commissioner Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This will be quick. Thank you to staff for this item and how thorough it was. If I could just make a request, and I think I've mentioned this before, if we are referencing a plan in an agenda item, I just think it makes sense to attach the plan as a PDF to the item. I shouldn't have to, Google it to find it. If you're a resident who just wants to be engaged and learn, let's just make it easy for everyone, to be on the same page. Thank you.
Or hyperlink.
Sure, either way.
Cool. Commissioner Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just very quickly, I agree with Commissioner Williams-Cox, the Mayor Pro Tem. because one of the things that we see is what's happening on West Pensacola Street. A lot of development beginning to happen. I mean, we're looking at 2 hotels about to be developed in that area. And that's certainly one of the areas where we've got some issues that need to be dealt with. So, yeah, I think we should look at what's happening throughout our city. MMTD is great, and it gives us a roadmap for how we can do that for every segment of our community where we're starting to see growth occur.
Excellent. All those in favor of the motion on the table signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, passes unanimously, 5-0. We are on item number 12.05. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This item provides an update on the Circle K property located within the Canopy development that you have previously discussed. In fact, at your last meeting, you directed me to determine through all of the departments of the city if there are any departmental needs for this privately owned property. Staff followed our typical process. We asked the departments if there are any pre-existing needs or there was any needed use in the property, and none have been identified. And so there's no public necessity in this case. And based on this, staff does not recommend initiating the eminent domain proceedings to acquire the property. We have staff from many departments here. City Attorney's Office is obviously involved, and we're here to answer any questions you have on this.
Sounds good. I know we have a lot of public comment on this item. Madam Attorney, I would like for you to go ahead and provide your legal opinion on this item before we start with.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you know, Commissioners, the eminent domain is one of the harshest proceedings the law has. And as a result, proceedings under eminent domain are very strictly construed. And public necessity is the principal foundation for the valid exercise of eminent domain. It's not enough that it's public demand or public desire or even purpose. Public necessity means that it's something that's, basically essential. The city manager indicated that there was, a survey done and that no public purpose was found. And so in this particular case, I do not recommend, I do not think that we are likely to be successful in an eminent domain proceeding.
All right, now, hold on, let me back up, because our friends are going to get up and say there is a public purpose for to build park, there is a public purpose, public safety. Manager, walk us through the determination, legally public purpose, what that means, because I don't want there to be confusion.
Yeah, absolutely. And so going back to the inquiry with the departments, all of our departments will identify needed space. And it doesn't have to be specific to a parcel. The example of parks is a good one. We do add parks from time to time. We evaluate need, we gauge interest, and so we have a roadmap, and it involves a variety of things. In this case, we would look we had no pre-existing identification of a parcel like this in this area for a park because there are a lot of amenities in the immediate area. We even consider things like county facilities, so we know the greenway is nearby this, and so that would be a county facility generally, or private facilities, parks, and things of neighborhoods. Even in this situation, we know our new senior center is going to be nearby with amenities, and so that goes into that consideration of did we previously think we needed something? When we look again, do we believe the needs are being met? And in that case, like in the parks example, we've determined that the needs are being met and we have no need for it. And therefore, as you apply that to the eminent domain standard, in that case, it would not meet that high bar of public necessity or need. And that's how we would approach this and how we would approach these kind of matters.
So, Madam Attorney, the manager's office does the determination. I'm talking process now. So we asked at the last meeting for y'all to go through the process for determination. Manager's office goes through the process of determination through the departments. That goes to your office. You look at the legal aspects of it to then provide your legal opinion one way or the other how to move forward. So, if we were to proceed, how does this work?
We would have to, if there was a determination that there was public necessity for a taking of this property, then we would go through our normal procedures, which is to bring a resolution back to the City Commission giving the city attorney's office the authority to proceed to initiate an eminent domain proceeding.
And to proceed by initiating, what does that mean?
Then we would file and request an order of taking from the court, and it's a long prescriptive process, and the court would make a decision.
You do not believe, based on everything that's come, your opinion is, that's come before you?
Well, my opinion is based on the fact that a really core tenet of an eminent domain taking is that there be public necessity for the taking. And because it does not appear that there is a public necessity in this case, I do not think that the city would be successful in an eminent domain proceeding.
Mr. Clerk, how many speakers do we have on this item?
At this time, we have 9.
Okay, let's move forward. Well, hold on, before we do. Colleagues, this is a very detailed legal argument as well. Do we have any questions or clarification before we go? I want to make sure that everybody's got the opportunity to ask. Any clarification questions? We're good? Okay. Let's go to public comment. Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Mayor. Our first speaker is Steve Dury. Steve Dury is first, followed by Ali M.
Your name and address for the record, please.
Hi. Good afternoon. My name is Steve Dury, 3844 Ardmore Lane. So, Circle K. We all know it's wrong. We've heard from you that you believe it's wrong as well. No matter how it got to this point, how it got to the approvals that it already has, how did it get justified? Deep down, everyone in this room knows it doesn't belong. We've heard suggestions that eminent domain might not be the option here. But if that's what you've been told, I urge you to take a closer look. If city staff is advising against it, it's possible the information is incomplete or that other viable legal pathways haven't been fully explored. Let's make sure everyone on this commission is fully informed. This gas station project should never have made it this far in the city's process. But it did, and now it has to be stopped. Florida law does allow eminent domain when land is repurposed for a legitimate public use, such as a park, stormwater management was mentioned, or other civic benefit. This commission already voted unanimously to explore that option, and it remains viable. And that's not your only option. You also hold police power, a constitutional authority that gives municipalities like Tallahassee the ability to regulate zoning, land use, and development for the sake of public safety, welfare, and community integrity. You have tools beyond purchasing the land. The off-ramps are there. The tools are available and in your hands. All that's left is, do you have the will to take action or not? Mayor Daley, you said it best. Some fights are worth fighting. This one is. You initiated the 3-step plan, led the unanimous vote to pursue eminent domain. Let's finish what you started. A gas station is not your legacy. A park or something else could be. Mayor Pro Tem Williams-Cox, you've championed environmental justice and equity for underserved neighborhoods. This is your opportunity to show that all communities, regardless of the zip code, deserve the same protection. Consistency matters, and Canopy is now asking for yours. Commissioner Richardson, you've asked the question that needed to be asked. Who regulates development like this near homes? At your suggestion, we went to the state. The answer was clear. The city does. It's your zoning, it's your jurisdiction, and it's your authority.
You're at 30 seconds.
You have the ability to make this right, not just for Canopy, but for every neighborhood moving forward. Commissioner Matlow, you've always stood for transparency, fairness, and public accountability, but the way this deal unfolded without public input or clarity runs counter to the openness you've championed. This is your moment to restore trust and prove that community voice still matters. And last, Commissioner Porter, you've said time and again that the public should be heard.
3 minutes.
Well, tonight, we're here.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker, please.
Ali M. is next, and then we'll hear from Terry Shepard.
Your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Allie, and I live in Canopy. The City of Tallahassee is still in the process of permitting a brand-new gas station closer to existing family homes than any other city in America. It's obviously so wrong. Everyone knows it's wrong, including you. When a developer and a corporation threaten this much harm to the health and safety of your citizens, including children, and the city department sign off on almost every step of it, you elected officials must step in and stop the project. That is what leadership demands. The citizens of Canopy didn't put you in this terrible position, but we are asking you, as our elected officials and fellow human beings, to lead us out of it. Regardless of the weak codes, the developer's non-disclosures, and Circle K's unreasonableness and treatment of you now, this is where we are. Your responsibility, each of you, is to vote to protect us today through eminent domain and/or through the city's zoning and permitting powers, known as your established police powers. The city approved the amendment to Canopy's PUD, then the abbreviated Type A zoning for this huge gas station, requiring no notice to any landowner. The city has approved almost every developer and Circle K request. None of the site plans submitted to the city for this project depict even one actual home nearby. Yet here we sit, some of us living 60 feet from this site, paying hefty property taxes that benefit the city, sick from stress, begging for your help. This kind of story makes national headlines. It's already on the internet. It's time to stop this insanity, if only for Tallahassee's reputation, for each of your own personal legacies. After all of the city's involvement in this equation, you cannot throw your hands in the air and say, this is bad, we feel for you, we'll try to do better in the future. If you do that, your name will be linked to this catastrophe forever, and that would be shameful and cowardly, and you are leaders. Go the eminent domain route, as you promised. Current Florida statute 166.411 specifically grants Florida cities the power to exercise eminent domain for the public purpose of creating parks. The power is subject to or infrastructure. The power is subject to the land being needed for a public necessity. There is no doubt this commission already established that real public necessity when it voted to offer Circle K money or a land swap back in October. Those offers were made. That wouldn't have been done if it wasn't a public necessity for this land. There's no need for you to retreat now. Circle K may well back down once you start the eminent domain process. This has been terrible publicity for them, too. If their national corporate officers haven't yet heard about this mess, they're about to. Unless you stop this project, we are sure it's going national. The story, that is. If you decide there is no public necessity, then utilize some of your many police powers to help us. As several of my neighbors will discuss, you have so many tools at your disposal. Use one or all of them to stop this project. Slant any bias toward your citizens like you're supposed to. You're our representatives. The mayor said some fights are worth fighting. Do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker, please.
Terry Shepard. Terry Shepard, followed by Laura Dury.
Your name and address for the record, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Terry Shepard, and I live in Canopy. We and you know it's wrong. Even your own growth management team should know it's wrong. So let's be clear. Doing nothing is not an option. The city staff's recommendation to file no eminent domain suit is based solely on their assertion that no public necessity exists. However, the commission already established Tallahassee's public necessity for this land in October, when it voted unanimously to either purchase this site from Circle K or swap it out for other land the city owns in order to create a small, much-needed city park near the senior center on Wilani. At that October commission meeting, and as quoted on WCTV, Mayor Daley said, if Circle K refused to budge on the first two offers, the city would seize the land through eminent domain. With the commission's unanimous vote, the public necessity for this site was established. City employees were then directed to take action, which they did. Thank you. However, both offers to purchase and swap the land were rejected. A city does not offer an oil company or anyone else purchase money or a land swap without a public necessity for the land. If there was no public necessity for the city to obtain this land, these offers would never have been made. The city doesn't give the resources away without necessity, and that necessity must be and was for the public. Today's published meeting agenda notes state The staff followed the standard process when determining whether to either acquire or dispose of property. Like in a vacuum, instead of making their recommendation in the full context of what's already happened here? If Circle K had said yes to either offer, the city would now own this land for the public purpose of creating a small park accessible to all. So the public necessity to proceed with the eminent domain suit you promised already exists. Please go forward. Even if a court later disagrees there was ever a public necessity here, Circle K may get more serious about a land sale or swap during the process. So far, they haven't seen any pushback from the city, only from the citizens. So if not eminent domain, then you must use the city's police powers to stop or stall this project, to protect us, your citizens. Thank you.
Our next speaker, please.
Laura Dury, and then David Shepard.
Your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Laura Dury. I reside in the Canopy neighborhood. Mayor Daley, city commissioners, city attorney, city manager, and esteemed members of the city staff, I stand before you tonight as another voice for our community, one that feels deeply frustrated, disrespected, and quite honestly deceived. I know this is wrong. You know this is wrong. It is our understanding that Tallahassee has once again been nominated as a finalist for the prestigious All-American City Award, an honor it has received in the past, but not in recent years. This year's theme is strengthening environmental sustainability through community engagement, and yet nothing could more sharply contradict that theme than what has happened in our neighborhood this past year. Right here under this very roof, we, the homeowners of Canopy, have been fighting an unimaginable battle, a battle against secrecy, a battle against negligence, a battle against a system that allowed a gas station to be approved just feet from our homes without a single warning or public hearing. Let me say that again. No notice, no hearing, no protection. If you were to read about this online, and thousands already have, you'd find that following Tallahassee's zoning laws are shockingly weak, failing to offer even the most basic safeguards to prevent a gas station from being placed in the middle of a residential community. Other cities do better, much better. And yet, over a year later, this commission has not proposed a single ordinance to fix this dangerous gap. All of this was wrong from the start. But what's worse is the lack of action to make it right. You, the City Commission, promised us 3 steps. So far, what we have seen, your word, we've done 1 and 2. Absolutely no transparency of what 1 and 2 was. And now we hear whispers that the city may try to claim there's no permissible purpose, public purpose, for eminent domain. Let me be very clear, that's simply not true. Will this city keep its promise and act to protect the families of Canopy? So the question is, will you be remembered for standing with your residents? Commission save citizens from living in the vapors of proposed gas station, or for turning your backs on us? City sides with developer and Circle K against pleading Canopy residents. We are not going away. We are informed, united, and determined. If eminent domain is not pursued, then use your police powers. Do something, anything, because doing nothing is no longer acceptable. Tallahassee wants to be seen as an environmentally engaged, community-driven city, but actions speak louder than application. And right now, our city is not living up to its own ideals. We trusted you. We believed your promises. Now it's your moment to prove that trust was not misplaced. Thank you.
Our next speaker, please.
Next speaker is David Shepard. Following Mr. Shepard will be Mark Valenga.
Your name and address for the record, please.
David Shepard, 3860 Ardmore Lane. We all know this is wrong, guys. You know it is wrong. Even your growth management department should know that it's wrong. So let's be clear, doing nothing is not an option. If there is no public necessity, so no eminent domain, then use your police powers. If the majority of the commission does not concur that the public necessity was established in October when the city made a formal offer to buy land for a public purpose, or you are concerned that a court will reject an assertion of public necessity here, then you consider the following. The city is obligated to protect the public, especially from harm it helped to create by omission. The commission is at a pivotal moment. It must stop this gas station before permitting, which Circle K boasts is happening, to protect us in advance from the permanent harm a gas station would present here. Using its myriad powers, police powers, a city must act. Here are some of the possible actions you can take. Pause, hold, or revoke all issued construction or operating permits and stop future ones. Rezone the property now. Apply zoning overlay. Place a zoning moratorium on the site requiring an independent environmental impact study and a thorough hydrogeologic evaluation and geotechnical study. Condition all existing or future permits on the completion of the Wilani Road extension and Wilani I-10 interchange and any ancillary roads leading to Centerville Road and the Dempsey-Mayo Road extension so that we homeowners and first responders can access our home during construction. If your sister government, the Leon County Commission, found a way to delay, then stop the Colonial Pipeline, then you can certainly use one or several or all your tools to stop one gas station. If Circle K feels it must sue the city, then I say let it. My wife and I met at FSU over 50 years ago. We moved here last January. This was our home, our final home next to you know what. And unfortunately, we have never felt so deeply threatened and disappointed by a prospect of a gas station being allowed to encroach so closely, just 58 feet from homes. If you fail to stop this construction, this city will sadly cease to be a place we can call home.
30 seconds remaining.
Thank you. Our next speaker, please.
Mark Wallinga is next, and then Stephen Martin.
Your name and address for the record, please.
Mark Wallinga. I live in Canopy. I'm a retired professional geologist, worked in the oil and gas industry for 30 years. Placing 30,000 gallons of gasoline within 60 feet of homes is just outrageous. Distance from that wall to me is 45 feet. 15 more feet, that's where the gas station's going to be. It's that close. The permitting process for this Circle K has been routine. The city has not required anything out of the ordinary, as if they were building a regular business on Capitol Circle. But the city should have additional requirements considering what Circle K is trying to do here in the heart of a residential neighborhood. Circle K needs to do way more than the bare minimum in order to install and operate a gas station within 60 feet of our homes. If you're not going to proceed with eminent domain, I have a couple of ideas from the permitting process where you can just stop this project. When they build this gas station, they're going to dig a hole about 40 by 50 feet in diameter right over there, 20 feet deep. The homes are going to be right there. If they breach cavernous limestone down at 20 feet, they could cause a sinkhole. And that has happened in the past. That is not outrageous to think that might happen. They're also going to dewater the whole area for 3 weeks, probably 1 million gallons of water. Again, that could cause a sinkhole too. Sinkhole investigation and aquifer testing should be part of the permit process. I'm sure there's not anything in there about that. And the state's not going to require it, but the city could require it. Also, the groundwater that's going to be dewatered is going to be discharged to Dove Pond. The groundwater table could have elevated levels of arsenic, chromium, and lead, and we don't want that going into Dove Pond for obvious reasons. Also, environmental impact assessments and risk assessments should be conducted to evaluate health impacts to nearby residents and the environment from construction activities and the gas station operation. All these studies should be shared with Canopy homeowners prior to permit approval. Also, we recommend that as a condition of issuing any permit to construct this gas station, a qualified Circle K environmental expert, not a lawyer, be required to appear in person before this commission or some similar hearing and answer to the public about why they need to install this gas station 60 feet from our homes and how there are zero impact's going to be to our neighborhood, because that's what they're going to claim.
30 seconds.
Circle K may sue over all these permitting requirements, but you have to ask yourself one question. Will Circle K show up for a deposition or appear in a courtroom under oath to answer uncomfortable questions about environmental hazards to residents living so close to this proposed gas station? In the industry, there's something called don't open Pandora's box. That's why they don't want to go to court.
You're at 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker, please.
Stephen Martin. He'll be followed by Stanley Sims.
Your name and address for the record, please.
Stephen Martin, 2625 Stonegate Drive. Yeah, like the prior speakers, I don't live in Canopy, but I've been involved with this land for a lot longer than they have. Yeah, this is just the latest episode about what's been going on with Walani Plantation. The city's been serving private interests far more than the public interest. We can go back to the annexation of property. The city had to violate a state statute to not create an unincorporated enclave. So what did they do? They annexed the property, and then they de-annexed a strip of it to get around that statute. The city went out of its way. I spoke to the city administration about this. I see one here. I see one back there. The other one, Mr. Sheldon, the attorney, he's retired since then. I also spoke to the mayor across the street. And you agreed with me, Mayor. What was going on wasn't exactly by the book. This is just, again, another episode of what's been going on. Staff claims the proposed gas station is consistent with the comp plan, and one of you so often claims you have no choice but to approve controversial developments due to consistency with the comp plan. But as the mayor pointed out recently, comp plan is highly subjective. This is from the comp plan. Comp plan seeks to balance growth management with environmental protection, but gives precedence to environmental protection. The purpose is to preserve, protect, and enhance the quality of life for all citizens. The natural environment is one of many criteria which form the community's perceived quality of life. The natural environment is a major component in the quality of life equation for Leon County. As such, it must be protected. The residential environment is also one of the many criteria which form the community's perceived quality of life and must be protected. I invite Mr. Tedder, who I spoke with quite a bit about this years ago, Mr. White, any of them to come up and produce an equation that shows me that this proposed gas station is consistent with what I just read. I invite any of you to do that. And I taught math and statistics, so I taught with equations. At the October meeting, as you've heard, eminent domain was brought up. Were residents of Canopy invited to the table during this discussion?
You're at 30 seconds.
That the city attorney's office had? They weren't invited. Why weren't they even invited? It's the same city attorney.
Mr. Martin, they can't hear you on TV.
They pointed out that it was misworded with the one provision in there with the city salary. Lady came into the Citizens Charter Review Committee meetings, pointed out that the county is not what it was before. The county is now a charter county, and salaries aren't determined by that. She didn't find it necessary to reword that. I could go on. I'll continue as unagendered speaker now.
Stanley Sims is next, then Jim Mitchell.
Your name and address for the record, please.
Stanley Sims, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, Washington, D.C. Miss Joyce, my grandmother told me it's a mighty pole frog that won't defend their own home. This sweet young lady here got to stand here and freeze for hours. Just to let you all know, she don't want to smell gas. Mr. Mayor, I know how it is raising boys. They get up, they get hungry all times of night. I got two. But the next time, swing over to a Circle K at 1 in the morning. Try the one on Mayhem. They ain't getting hamburgers and hot dogs and chips. They ain't even buying no Mad Dog 2020. Sometimes they don't even buy nothing. They just sit in the parking lot with their trucks. Miss Joyce don't want to hear that. That's my cousin. And I'm trying so hard to be nice because Miss Joyce told me to be on good behavior. But I've seen this dais right here do what they really want to do. Let me give you an example. $27 million to Doak Campbell Stadium. They did that. Oh, you say that's too far back? What about this here? How about trying to sell our dog? Sorry, Miss Joyce, sorry. What about trying to sell our hospital? So you can do what you want to do. And this is a piss-poor fight. And here's what got me dismayed. And I'm a little nervous now because my wife worked for the attorney for 25 years. I'm hearing that we can't stop this, but I haven't heard anything about how do we prevent this. So that Miss Joyce, friends, I don't live far from you, Miss Joyce, you know, but I got a vacant lot. Will there be a Circle K there? And it doesn't matter that another Circle K is like half a mile down the road because, hell, they just, if it ain't a Circle K, it's a We Walk, a T Walk.
You're at 3 minutes.
Thank you.
I'm through, Miss Joyce. How did I do?
Next speaker.
Next speaker is Jim Mitchell. This is the last speaker we have on the item.
Great. Your name and address for the record, please.
Jim Mitchell, 2424 Sweet Valley Heights. Live, work, and play in Canopy. This is the fourth time I have come to the City Commission. We bought our home in Canopy about 3 years ago and decided to retire in Tallahassee. At that time, there was no mention of a gas station. We are one of those closest homes that keep talking about within 58, 60 feet. And as I mentioned last time before the City Commission, you can stand in my backyard and you could hit a pickleball over the fence and land very easily into the new Circle K proposed parking lot. It seems like we have been blindsided first by Premier Homes. We did not know anything about a Circle K until there was a sign on the property that says a sign variance. And then Canopy homeowners came and we fought against any type of sign variance, but that opened our eyes to find out a Circle K was being built. We were blindsided by Circle K, who has refused to be transparent, to meet with homeowners, to meet with the City Commission in an open way. And now this evening, we feel like we've been blindsided by the city staff. I was really, along with other homeowners, really surprised by the decisions and the response by the city staff. We have already heard about public necessity. It seems like public safety is a public necessity. It seems like developing the land in a different way is a public necessity. And I think there are many ways that public necessity can be defined, especially not a gas station in a neighborhood, not a gas station within 60 feet of my backyard, and not a gas station in my backyard. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker, please, Ms. Clerk.
Mayor, we have no other speakers on this item.
All right, Madam Attorney, there's a lot to unpack there that they brought up. Can you walk us through a couple ideas? Police powers in particular, in regards to, do we have the opportunity to rezone it right now? Do we have the opportunity to do zoning overlays? When it comes to the permitting process, it was mentioned about going through the process to deter sinkhole action, groundwater discharge, health impact study, all as part of the permitting process. Just begin and walk us through.
So there are two ways for governments to regulate private, municipalities to regulate private property. One is, we've been talking about the eminent domain process, which is when the property is taken for a public necessity that the government has. And then the other is the speakers were referencing police power. And in the context of private property, police power is issues related to zoning and building codes and environmental regulation, those kinds of things. I can't really speak to, growth management or planning could speak more adequately on that. I do know that the zoning cannot be changed after the fact. So from a legal perspective, that's the case. What can be done going forward would be something for other staff to address.
Can you do a zoning overlay in the middle of the process?
No. Not legally.
Okay. Mr. Raddick, can you help us out with some of these as well? Mr. Manager,
Mr. Mayor, so John is our growth management director. I think he can talk about the process related to permitting. I think there was some general discussion about, issuing either future permits or things of this nature. Certainly, John can highlight how that process works. Those things we have to consider in kind of the four corners of the page.
That's right. Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. As a city manager led to here's the we're bound by the current framework, essentially for any permit that we're taking in. The framework that's set at the time that application is submitted and that process has begun. So what we'd be looking at would be essentially the extent of our land development regulations and our land development code from the time that they've begun the process. So whether it be establishing an overlay district or, as we've discussed in prior meetings, of having some sort of separation requirements, those would only, once adopted, would only apply to any future project that came in after the point of that being adopted, that began the process after the point of adoption of an ordinance. So I'll repeat that just to clarify that that we would only, if you were to adopt an ordinance that put further restrictions on a specific use and its location, that would only apply to any project that started the permitting process after that ordinance was adopted. So in this case, if any action was taken to put restrictions, whether it be on this property specifically or on others, it would not affect the permitting of this specific project. They would be able to finish out the permitting under the regulations that were in place when they started their application.
Hold right there. Mr. Manager, at a previous meeting, didn't we ask y'all to put something together regarding future development, and we're working on that right now?
Yes, sir. Actually, we're working on that. As you might imagine, a lot of variables in that. So there are only certain zoning districts that gas stations are allowed in. They tend to be along our arterial roadways, generally speaking, a lot of existing gas stations. So we're working through that, and we'll bring that item back to you.
Great. Mr. Raddick, walk us through this permitting process that this Circle K will have to go through in regards to the comments that were brought up by the citizens, sinkhole protection, groundwater discharge, health impact studies. Walk us through.
Sure. I'll elaborate on the extent of our local regulations in that process, specifically on the environmental side. For example, we do have an aquifer protection team who reviews all of our site plan permits to look for any conflicts with exposure or contamination of the aquifer. For example, specific uses get closer examination than others, such as gas stations, car washes, things that may have some sort of contaminated discharge of some sort. So we have our own staff who are specifically assigned to that duty. We do actually regulate for karst features. Our land development code has specific added scrutiny for any project that may be close to active cars features. This is more common on the south side of town than it is in this particular area. So that is actually a carve out within our Chapter 5 of our Land Development Code to look at those, to look at potential exposure to karst features. Beyond that, for this is going to be for any gas station in town, is we're going to have our specific stormwater standards, which are going to have treatment requirements. Our current, our local standards are higher than the state minimums and higher than most around the state, most municipalities around the state. So we'll have treatment standards that are required prior to any water being able to say go out into a public waterway, for example, or discharge into the ground and into the aquifer.
Excellent. Thank you. Going back, Madam Attorney, any other comments? Hold on, I got a question real quick. A lot of talk about public necessity. A lot of talk about the establishment of public necessity when we first reached out to Circle K to offer to buy the property. Talk to us about general opinion of public necessity versus the legal definition of public necessity that would be applied if we move towards.
Right. Well, I don't think that the offer by the city to purchase was made with any determination about whether there was public purpose at that time. I think it was made as a directive of the city commission at the time. And it was made for the cost that Circle K had paid at the time. In an eminent domain taking, there would be a lot of other costs considered as well besides the actual value. So it wasn't until the city manager's office was directed more recently to determine if there was a public purpose that they did their procedure for determining that and determined that there was no public purpose. So again, in the absence of public purpose, we cannot establish public necessity for taking that property from a private property owner. And that's really the standard of eminent domain.
Okay. What are any ramifications if we move forward with eminent domain and loose?
There's attorney's fees, which can be very significant, in addition to other costs like engineers and consultants, which can also be very significant. So there's definitely cost involved in moving forward.
Not an attorney, no one up here is. How does this work? Will there be an initial hearing by a judge to even see if there is merit to move forward before the process moves forward? Or does it automatically just go into?
I'm not completely familiar actually with the process. But I believe there would be a hearing on what's called an order of taking. The process does take some significant amount of time to accomplish.
Okay. Colleagues, questions, discussion, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. I guess my question is that it has come to a gas station, but there's a whole list of allowable uses for that property, correct, John?
That's correct.
So no one knew what the use was going to be until it was purchased. But in the comp plan, or in the land use, there are a number of uses that could have occurred there.
That's correct.
Whoever purchased it could then legally do whatever those allowable uses were. And a gas station apparently was one of those allowable uses.
That's correct.
Okay, so I wanted to be clear that it didn't come into that this was an outlier, because all the time, gas station was an allowable use, along with a lot of other things that could have occurred there. But
Ladies and gentlemen, I need you to maintain, please, for us, okay? Thank you.
So John, where can you? And I don't want to put you on the spot, but I know that that there are a number of allowable uses. I was on the planning commission, so I know. Where could they find this list of allowable uses?
And that would be within the planned unit development document itself, where each of the different areas of the canopy planned unit development have their own assigned uses within that. So that's where that's designated.
So in the PUD, it listed all of the allowable uses, and to your knowledge, a gas station or a convenience store or a number of other things could have is an allowable use for this land.
That's correct. So our review as growth management reviewing a permit coming in is going to be, is it a listed use? Yes. And then from there, is it going to be able to meet all of our land development regulations? And we're still in that process right now.
So a private citizen bought this land,
Yes.
looked at the allowable uses, and decided which one or other those uses that they chose to do that with. Now, I think I heard you say too that this is not the end of the road, because there are some other challenges or some other hurdles that they will have to overcome in order for the gas station to go forward. Just sound like there was some environmental things or some additional permitting that they would need to satisfy to make that happen. Now, and I want to say this, depending in some circles, the permitting in Tallahassee takes too long and it's too stringent, is what we hear in some places. But here we're now saying that, we don't want that. we want us to kind of bypass that. So can you, I know you just went through it, but can you give us kind of a little bit clarity on what would be the next step that this private owner would have to go through in order to move forward?
Sure. So at this point, they've completed their site plan approval, which is that sort of 30,000-foot view. And then we have our environmental management permit, which is more geared towards stormwater management, site grading, landscaping. And then from there, the third step from our local process is the building permitting process. And that is what they have not completed to date, is that building permitting process. I know in prior meetings and discussions, we've mentioned the Florida Department of Environmental Protection and their element of it, which, again, we have no control over timing or implementation of that. But that is a separate step that gas stations specifically have to go through.
And to your knowledge, they haven't done that yet?
That's correct. As of this week, to my knowledge, they have not done that yet.
And I know we keep saying that. We keep saying that, the Department of Environmental Protection will be involved and they will do this and they will do that. But I'm still not clear on, has anyone, and I'm not saying it's the city's responsibility, but has anyone contacted the Environmental Protection to talk about what happens in their process?
And I can speak sort of high level to that, my own understanding, and I don't know if any residents have spoken with them either, but it is a permitting and inspection of tank storage specifically, and making sure that they meet certain requirements. I know they do have specific separation requirements. Those are geared more towards active wells, well sites for potable water, but they have stringent on-site inspections they do. For example, when the tanks arrive and any of the equipment, they oversee installation, and that's all geared towards really making sure that it meets their requirements and their state rules for preventing leaks and any other nuisance, environmental nuisance associated with
So what we as a commission said that we would do, thank you, John, was that we look into purchasing it. They said, no thanks. Land swapping, no thanks. And eminent domain, which we don't have a public use for. The eminent domain is like a last resort. And I have to think about this, not just in Canopy, but in other parts of our city, and how that's being used. It's usually not a good, it's a bad word in many instances, because that means that somebody's about to take somebody's land. But it is for, you heard us talk about it earlier tonight, but we need that to finish a project that's already underway. We're not changing the rules in the middle of a game. So I think that we've found ourselves in a position where as far as I'm concerned, we've exhausted. We've done what we said we would do. We did not say that we would.
Ladies and gentlemen.
We did not say that we would sue someone for eminent domain. We said we would look into it, and we have looked into it. And my question is it a good use of taxpayer money to accumulate legal costs that we know that we're probably not going to win going in? So is that what we really should do? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Sure. It occurred to me we do not have a motion on the table to move forward. Let me jump in real quick to get the ball rolling. Mayor Pro Tem, you are absolutely correct, 100%. I appreciate you bringing all your experience both on this commission and on the Planning Commission to the table today. I want to thank Mr. Reddick. You are absolutely correct on the permitting process. The policing powers, in my mind, do not apply because they are in the process right now, and they would have to be applied to any future projects that would go through, including zoning overlap and everything else. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm asking you, please, be with me. Madam Attorney, I agree with you as well with your legal opinion that it is going to be an uphill challenge and very, very, very difficult to win. Mr. Manager, I agree with you in all of your department staff and expectations, in experience, excuse me, of going through and determining, public necessity or not. We have done the process 100%, and it is perfect. Now, having said that, I do think that there is a reasonable assumption that when you purchase a house, even in a new development that's going to be developed, that you are not expecting to have a gas station in your backyard. I really don't think that that is an assumption that most people that are buying a house would think. Right. Let me be very clear, Mayor Pro Tem, commissioners, I don't think we're going to be successful. But I am going to make the motion, a very unique situation, because I don't think I've ever done this in the 19 years that I have served, but I will make the motion that we bring back the resolution to move forward with eminent domain. I'm asking you to work with me, please. I'm making the motion to bring back the resolution to move forward with eminent domain on this specific parcel, acknowledging and recognizing all of the experts and appreciating everything that has been brought to the table.
Mr. Mayor?
There's a second to the motion
I
by
would
Commissioner
second that,
Richards.
but I do have a couple of questions. One is, what is and this is for Madam Attorney.
Sure.
What is the length of the process that we would expect to go through?
I don't know exactly how long it will take, Commissioner, but I can tell you that there are several steps. We have this resolution, there's an opportunity for negotiation, and then there is the order of taking, and then after that is the consideration of the compensation if the order of taking is successful. So there are several steps. I don't know, Robert Culverhouse usually negotiates these on behalf of the city. And so you may have something to add to that in terms of timing. Robert, you've had more experience with it than I have in going through the whole process beginning to end.
Robert?
Sure. And understanding there would be a process leading up to the eminent domain filing. By policy, we would have to have 2 appraisals of the property. We would have to make a open offer based on those appraisals, and that offer would have to be made under the threat of condemnation. And statutorily, the property owner would have 30 days to consider before we could even talk about filing something. And then we'd have to come back to the commission for a resolution for the eminent domain. And then it's my understanding then that the various legal issues would need to be filed, list pendants, order of taking, that type of thing.
Real quick, on point, yes, ma'am.
How often have we done this?
I've been with the city for almost 13 years, and the case we heard earlier this evening is the 5th one I've been involved with. It's fairly rare. We use it as a last resort for public.
So I do have a motion on the table. I
I
want all my colleagues to
I have
know.
one other question.
Oh, I'm sorry, sure. Commissioner Richardson, I apologize.
So as we're going through the condemnation process, does the permitting process continue as well?
we would have no reason to halt that. We would continue, if they wanted to continue, then they
Yeah.
would.
So it could be that they have all the proper permits before this condemnation
That-
process.
That could occur. I mean, I'll look to Madam Attorney, but it could be a fully constructed site and
I'm not aware of any legal basis where you could stop, but I would have, I don't want to give a definitive answer on that because we'd have to look at it. It would be something we'd have to take a look at.
Okay.
Sure. And I completely understand and would respect any colleague that disagree with me, but I am going to support the motion on the table. And let me be very clear, Madam Attorney, I support you 100%, and I'm not saying that I disagree with your legal opinion at all. I'm just saying that I'm still willing to move forward down this path. That's all. Commissioner Matlow, I believe you had your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I support the motion on the table. I wanted to start on the underlying issue there, if we move forward with this as a park, which I do think speaks to public safety. But I'm curious if we looked at, I know in our strategic plan, we've always talked about being within a 10-minute walk from a public park or a city park. And I know you mentioned the senior center and you mentioned the Miccosukee Greenway. I think that's flexible if you call those parks. I think a proper park. And I just wonder if we looked at the entirety of Canopy that would be within a 10-minute walk to this site that don't have that access previously as we move forward with that. Secondly, and we can bring this back if needed or just bring it up at a later date, but I am interested in looking at least a 6-month moratorium on issuing permits for gas stations in Wilani and Canopy. Even this site aside, if there's other developments as we're contemplating updating the code to get ahead to say we might have some problems with gas stations in the distance and go ahead and issue a moratorium on issuing permits. If we could bring that back at another meeting to discuss if that's acceptable.
I don't want that part of the motion
Sure.
that's on the table.
That's fine.
Commissioner Porter?
I'm ready to vote.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem?
Mr. Mayor, my concern is setting a precedent because there will be others who will come and for various reasons will want us to take this action. And if we take this action tonight, we won't have any reason to say why we couldn't take this action. I was concerned about it from the very beginning, I must say, because I did serve on the planning commission, and I know better. Because there are going to be things that are going to come before us like this. And it's absolutely, I would not want to live, I make that clear, would not want to live near a gas station. But if that's what happened after I moved in and that's what happened, then I wouldn't be happy about it, but that's what would be what would happen. But I am just very, very leery about taking this action because of setting a precedence for other communities to come into. Right now it's a gas station. What if it's like what's happening up in Georgia? What if it's a monkey farm? What if it's a whatever or whatever? If it is in our code as an allowable use, I just don't think that we can go to court and win this.
I'm not saying that.
Mr. Mayor, one last question.
Sure, Commissioner
And
Richardson.
I think Commissioner Williams-Cox did bring this issue up. We could be talking millions of dollars in a case that we could lose. And how do we justify that to the taxpayers of this? I'm going to put that out there because it's an issue that we may very well have to deal with. And I don't want any of us to ignore that. And so as soon as possible, I'd like to have some idea of what we're getting ourselves into financially. Not us, but this community that pays the property taxes and the sales taxes that fund the services of this community. We better have a good idea of what we're getting ourselves into in terms of the cost, and because this could even be a protracted process. If Circle K puts a spear in the sand and says, I told y'all I'm not interested in selling, I'm not interested in a land swap, we're going to fight like hell. They may not care about the publicity. There are Circle Ks all over this community right now, and they're making good money. I just want to make sure that we are clear on what we're getting ourselves into. I'm going to support the motion, but I want to be clear. When I go to my neighbor where I live on the south side of town, and there are things that we don't have and have not had, and I say, well, you know, we've got 5 or 6 million or so that we've got to spend defending this, when our attorney told us there wasn't a chance, that I want to be clear of what we're getting this community into. This is greater than canopy when we're talking about expending taxpayer dollars. So I want to have as much information as I possibly can get as we go forward in that respect.
Commissioner Richardson, you're absolutely correct. The motion on the table is to bring back the resolution. This is not the motion to move forward with eminent domain.
Okay.
I just asked the city attorney to bring back the best estimate, knowing it's an estimate of what type, of how much procedures like this would cost. So we do have an idea. You are correct. More information is crucial before the final vote at the next meeting.
Right.
So all of that information will be coming back. And I don't disagree with you one bit with the comments that you have made in regards to a balanced approach in this community as well. I hear you loud and clear. But tonight, I am going to support my motion on the table.
Sure.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to clarify something. I'll ask Robert to confirm. I think before we bring back the resolution, you are directing us to initiate the process by initiating a negotiation with Circle K. Is that correct?
What is the appropriate next step? And Madam Attorney, put me in the proper posture for my motion.
So
move forward.
Let me ask Robert to speak to that.
The first step would be to have 2 appraisals done of the property, and then we would need to make a formal offer under the threat of condemnation.
Understood. Are we clear?
And then we bring back the resolution.
Okay. Are we clear on the next step?
And then the order.
Which hopefully you understand my motion captures moving forward. Okay. Mayor Pro Tem.
I understand your motion, but the action of this motion is requiring the expenditure of dollars, an offer that could be rejected.
Correct.
And then that puts us right back to where we are. Now,
Correct.
I'm just.
Understood. Understood. Absolutely. And you are 100% correct. All those in favor of the motion on the table signify by, oh, I'm sorry,
Just
Commissioner
one other
Richardson.
question.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
again,
Yes, sir.
You know, I'm not in a rush to do this. I want to have as much information as I can get tonight.
Sure.
So we're directing staff to go out and do the 2 appraisals. Will that be out of whose budget? How much is that likely to cost? Whose budget does it come out of? Because it's an unbudgeted expense.
Mr. Mayor, I can answer that. So that will come out of our real estate division budget.
Okay.
It would in this case, it would be a general fund expenditure.
Okay.
It would be in the thousands. I would estimate small thousands at this point, though.
Okay.
And I think the action would be, just out of an abundance of clarity, we would take those 2 offers. Appraisals. We would make an offer. Okay. And the key, what Robert is saying, it would be under the threat of condemnation.
Okay.
That's distinct from what we've done previously. And that would trigger the process.
And we would have to articulate a public purpose.
Big mouth. Any other question?
Let's do it.
Any other clarification? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
Okay, passes 4-1 with the Mayor Pro Tem in dissent, and I completely understand and respect your decision. Okay, we're going to go ahead and take a break. It is 5:40. We'll be back at 6 o'clock for the public hearing. We have one more item that.
It's fast.
Do we have any public items?
Yeah, one more emergency.
We have
ratification of emergency purchase.
Public comment on the last item. Ladies and gentlemen, if I can have your attention real quick. Hold on. We have one more business item. Ladies and gentlemen, if I can have order. Ladies and gentlemen, if I can have order real quick. Thank you. I am going to go ahead, colleagues, and take up the last item. We do not have public comment on it, and that will allow us to have our discussion and be able to move forward. So if we could go ahead and take up item 12.06, that would be good, Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It can be fast. We're seeking ratification of the emergency authorization to engage in an amount, a contract in the amount of $356,000 for emergency repairs to Henderson Road. Henderson Road is immediately adjacent to North Florida Christian School. The roadway is failing because of a nearby retaining wall. Staff has commenced the process to repair that as quickly as possible and has authorized it, and we're seeking the emergency authorization tonight on this matter.
Move staff recommendation, Mr. Mayor.
Real quick, any public comment for the record?
No, sir.
Staff recommendation's been made by Commissioner Richardson. Is there a second? Seconded by the Mayor Pro Tem. Any further comment? See none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed. Passes unanimously. Let's say we'll be back at 6:05. 6:05. We're in recess. I'd like to call this meeting of the Tallahassee City Commission to order. It is our public hearing. We are on item number 16.01 of the public hearing. Madam Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item number 16.01 is the public hearing of ordinance number 25-Z-05, an ordinance of the City of Tallahassee, Florida, designating land as urban residential district R4 on the official zoning map from medium-density residential zoning district MR1 on 3.92 acres located at 2748 Pecan Road, providing for conflicts and severability and providing an effective date. The recommended action is option 1, conduct the first and only public hearing and adopt ordinance number 25-Z-05. Any ex parte disclosures concerning this item are available via the hyperlink included in the agenda item as published in the board doc system.
All right, do we have any public comment on this item, Mr. Clerk?
Mayor Ursula Chalmers is here to speak on this item.
Excellent.
She's right at the microphone, so you'll have 3 minutes for remarks. I'll give you a heads up at 2.5.
Thank you. Your name and address for the record, please.
I'm Ursula Chalmers. My birthday is May 10th, and I like flowers. The current situation on the Pecan Road is A, environmental. Removing trees eliminates transportation of carbon. Heavy traffic is present or in area. Wildlife migration to residents is happening as trees were already taken down. Different animals showing up in my backyard. Reproduction of given species in natural habitat is endangered. Existing woods are needed to soak up rainwater as well as that environment has a calming effect on humans. Let that sink in. Safety. Pecan Road has no walkability, sidewalks, as car speeds up in rush hour, some taking shortcuts from Hartsville to Mission to Saab. 33303 is one of the highest crime rates in violence, property theft, homicide, drugs associated with low income, drug trafficking on Pecan Lane, lawnmower stolen from my backyard, back porch, tent from shed removed during daytime since 2020. Young boys were playing with BB guns on Pecan Road. Health, number C. Increased traffic, car alarms, stereos, speakerphones, honking, lawn equipment, dump trucks, sirens, air traffic, trains, parkings, construction, sledgehammers, wood saws, service vehicles, as 3203 registers as most dense with 1,680 people per square mile. Is proven link to high blood pressure, hearing loss, sleep disturbance, loss of productivity, stress. The current noise turbulence are 7 times higher for pets and wildlife. Trash shopping carts found everywhere. D, water. 2748 Pecan Road is elevated. Currently, more flood water is running to lower housing on Pecan Lane,
You're at 30 seconds.
which is adjacent to Pecan Road. What residents do not notice or do notice that water collects ankle deep on doorsteps in front and back. Dead-end street Pecan Lane is used by trucks to turn on property, resulting in breaking PVC water lines
You're at 3 minutes.
as they haven't been at least 6-inch deep.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Our next speaker, please.
No additional speakers. We do have one here to answer questions if you have them. Sada Satu.
Colleagues, I'm looking to you. Comments, discussion, direction?
Move staff recommendation on option number 1, Mayor.
Second it.
Staff recommendation for option number 1 has been properly moved by Commissioner Richardson, seconded by the Mayor Pro Tem. Any further comment? Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Commissioner Matlow?
Oh, no, sorry.
All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes 5-0. We are on item number 16.02. Madam Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item number 16.02 is the public hearing on ordinance number 25-0-07, an ordinance of the City of Tallahassee, Florida, amending Section 6 of the Charter of the City of Tallahassee to annex within the corporate area of the City of Tallahassee, Florida, upon adoption of said ordinance, property being situated in Leon County, Florida, in accordance with the voluntary annexation provisions of Section 171.044 Florida statutes, providing for severability, conflicts, and an effective date. The recommended action is option 1, conduct the first and only public hearing and adopt ordinance number 25-0-07.
Excellent. Do we have any public comment on this item?
No, sir.
All right, colleagues.
Move staff recommendation.
Probably moved by the Mayor Pro Tem. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Richardson. Any further comment? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes unanimously 5-0. Do we have any other items come before us at this public hearing?
No, sir.
Okay, we are now on unagended speakers because we did not get to them at the end of policy formation and direction at the regularly scheduled meeting, and then we will go to the sharing of ideas. How many speakers do we have on unagended items?
At this point, I have 11, Mayor.
Excellent, let's go.
First speaker is Stephen Martin. Stephen Martin will be followed by Delilah Pierre.
Name and address for the record, please. You have 3 minutes.
Same as it was a few minutes ago. Stephen Martin, 2625 Stonegate Drive.
Martin, can you pull the microphone down? Thank you.
All right, Stephen Martin, 2625 Stonegate Drive. I wanted to continue with what I was talking, then add something else. I also wanted to bring up the possibility of wildlife corridor. As some of you know, I know that land quite well before it turned into what it is now. Yeah, there was a lot of wildlife there. There still is some. I still walk across there to get to the Greenway, and I can show anybody who wants to come out where I can still see wildlife tracks. It's on the opposite side of the roundabout where they've got the land cleared, and so it's a dirt surface. You can see the tracks there. If you go to the Greenway and you follow the Greenway, I mean, they've got these residences packed in like sardines. The Dempsey Mayo cutoff there is really the only width that you can go from the Greenway and get across to the other side without encountering residences. So I see this as connected to that, and it could be part of a wildlife corridor as well as a passive public park. There was a bear sighted a couple of years ago. One sighting of it was in Hickory Ridge, which is to the northwest of this site. Another sighting was in Lafayette Oaks, which is to the southeast. Assuming it's the same bear, it had to go across Canopy. And I'm guessing, I wouldn't be surprised if it came this way, because again, you go east or west of that cutoff, you got to go quite a ways before you see another area of that width that would be allowable for a wildlife corridor, and you don't want to push it to the west. So just something else to think about with that. And I mentioned, the comp plan. Comp plan is so subjective, and when you read it, I was talking to Mr. Reddick and Mr. White, and both of them said, we couldn't come up with a quality of life equation to justify this. They know that's not possible, yet it says in the comp plan that we will use this quality of life equation. A year ago, the word disingenuous was brought up by one of you accusing another one. Following month, I came in and brought that word up again, and in particular mentioned about environmentally disingenuous. I think anybody who claims to be environmentally committed and allow something like this where you are is being disingenuous. I believe not allowing those people to get involved in that discussion where they determined that this was not a public need, I don't think that was being very sincere to those people. I think that was a form of being disingenuous. I did, as I said before, I did appreciate the mayor for being willing to come up and do what he says he normally wouldn't do, stick his neck out a little, having experienced what these people have been through. As he said, they never expected anything like this and had every reason in the world to assume they wouldn't get something like this.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker, please.
Delilah Pierre, followed by Joel Nunez.
Your name and address for the record, please.
My name's Delilah. My address is exempt. I'm president of the Tallahassee Community Action Committee, and the first thing I wanted to say is that the Tallahassee Police Department waited 12 days to find Lori Page. The first 72 hours are crucial for finding a missing person. Lori Page, a 12-year-old who they deemed a runaway without any real evidence or information given, died. And there's a great possibility that she died within the first 24, 48, or 72 hours that she was there. I've seen the city posting a lot of articles about Lori Page, or at least the Tallahassee Democrat posting a lot of articles about Lori Page, but I haven't seen what our city is doing for Lori Page. I didn't see any of you show up to Lori Page's vigil. I haven't seen any of you speak about Lori Page and the situation she was facing. The Tallahassee Police Department waited 12 days to find Lori Page. They let Alua Toyin-Salau die, even though there was dozens of community activists and organizers looking for her. But the Tallahassee Police Department doesn't consider finding Lori Page, finding young black girls, their first priority. Their first priority is devoting their time and resources to terrorizing immigrants, to creating a 287G agreement, an advance that no one wants in our city, that undocumented people don't want in our city, that the FSU students in our city are facing, international students who supposedly give their business and time to FSU and are instead being punished and retaliated against for being immigrants. And I hear crickets from our city commission. We've seen an increase in homelessness by 22% in Tallahassee since 2022, a rising property tax, unsustainable police funding, gun violence, and homicide affecting all our communities. I've heard conversation today, in fact, about how we need transportation just from Midtown and College Town, not thinking about Frenchtown or Southside or other communities with poor infrastructure, with poor sidewalks, where people don't have the money or resources to even buy a car. If we use our public funding and budget correctly, we can avoid tragedies like the tragedy of the deaths of Lori Page and Alua Toyin-Salau, like the tragedy of the death of Ellie Sims, a 20-year-old girl killed on FSU's campus. If our budget resembles and reflects the needs of the people and not the needs of the developers and 1% in our city, that won't be a problem. So I'm going to ask y'all, I demand for justice for Lori Page, for our city to take her concerns seriously and to make a public statement in support of her, to actually do something for her, to end the 287G agreement with the Tallahassee Police Department, and for our city budget to be transparent and reflective of what the people in our city want. And what they do not want is a bloated police budget while they struggle with housing, while they struggle with transportation, and while they struggle to live.
Our next speaker, please.
Joel Nunez is next, and then Thomas Spears.
Name and address for the record, please.
name is Joel Nunez, and my address is Tallahassee. I come here today as a member of the Tallahassee Immigrant Rights Alliance, and I'm sure y'all have seen the news, right? We're seeing mass deportations throughout the country. We're seeing a rollback of due process. We're seeing people who are legal residents being targeted for no reason, having their status revoked. And overall, we're seeing ICE terrorize the communities. It's nothing short of a constitutional crisis that we are experiencing. When plainclothes officers are kidnapping people in their place of work, on the streets, breaking people's car windows down to drag them out. All of this has been on the news in just the last couple of days. I mean, we saw that man from Maryland get deported to that infamous mega prison in El Salvador where no one has ever been released from when he wasn't supposed to be deported. And so in the face of all of these attacks, in the face of the way that ICE is being used as almost this sort of Gestapo for Trump, I have to ask, is this what we want in our city? With this 287G agreement the TPD signed, we're inviting this into our city. We're increasing their capacity to deport our residents and even our citizens, as we're now seeing, for no reason. The model of 287G agreement, which TPD signed into, has been criticized and even was revoked entirely by ICE because it's notorious for racial profiling. Do we really want a program in this city that has been shown time and time again to increase racial profiling against Latino people, against brown people, against black people, against people whose English might not be so good? This is no good. This is no good. People don't want to be stopped in traffic, fearing that they're going to get sent to some concentration camp in El Salvador. People are afraid right now, and rightfully so. It's scary times. But it's our duty to stand with our community and to prevent this from happening to the most extent we can in Tallahassee, not inviting it. And so I ask, Chief Lawrence Revel to back out of this agreement, because as we're seeing, they're not playing. ICE is coming down harder and harder. They're not following the Supreme Court. They're not following due process. They're not following the Constitution. And they're acting as almost as paramilitary for Trump. And Lawrence Revel has the authority to not have this in our city. And so I ask y'all to stand with the people.
Next speaker.
The next speaker is Thomas Spears, followed by Juniper Curtis.
Name and address for the record.
My name is Thomas Spears. I live in 32303. I'm thinking about this whole Circle K debacle. Eminent domain should be used rarely and only when there's a proper public need. I don't see what a better public need could be than preventing the building of a gas station that would pollute and damage the homes that are less than 100 feet away. Circle K is a multi-billion-dollar company. They're going to be fine. You shouldn't be concerned about spending the money for all the legal fees on that eminent domain lawsuit when it's standing up for that community. The people will actually appreciate that. But then again, the concerns of what the community wants the city to spend money on has never been a priority. If the city's budget reflected what the people wanted, Tallahassee would have long since had the housing, the public transit, and the food security that we all demand. Instead, the conservative commissioners, the mayor, and city manager Risco just want to stick to giving more and more money to the police, more and more money to the stick and never to the carrot. And yet TPD proves to only serve certain people. Lori Page was missing for 12 days. The community had to start their own search before finally the police would get off the couch and start a search for a missing black girl, which certainly was not a factor as to why they waited so long. He said to WCTV that the runaway classification didn't impede the investigation. How could that possibly be the case? 12 days of waiting? He said that the runaway classification won't be used anymore. That is not enough. That classification needs to be eliminated entirely so that when another child goes missing, the search starts right away. Chief Revel didn't wait 12 days to voluntarily sign the 287G agreement. There's no legal requirement to sign that agreement. He and Reese Goat have all the time in the world to harass immigrants, destroy families, and destroy communities, all at the behest of the racists in the White House and the racists in this state's governor's mansion. This is not an agreement that the people want. The people need to be in control of the police. The people must decide the city's budget. That's the only way to make a Tallahassee that works for all Tallahasseans, not just the rich, not the land owning, not the business owning, not the 1%. The people do not want communities destroyed. They don't want, the idea of fighting against criminals is just this fear mongering. And the idea that because of that, you get to just sweep through all of them. The task force model was eliminated in 2012 because it was found to be racist.
30 seconds.
And that's the model that Tallahassee signed. It's a little suspicious. Like, what other reason could there be? You just have to follow what Donald Trump, whatever, and DeSantis say. Now, his alignment, whatever, but you guys call yourselves Democrats. Why are you letting him do that? I don't know his alignment either, but if you guys are Democrats, why are you going along with this? Pass the people's budget and terminate the 287G agreement. Thank you.
Next speaker, please.
Is Juniper Curtis, followed by Jason Card.
Name and address for the record, please.
Juniper Curtis, Tallahassee. I am here to demand that Chief Lawrence Revel put an immediate end to the 287 agreement, an end to all collaborations with immigration agencies like ICE, and that the city of Tallahassee stands strong with its immigrant community to push back against Trump and DeSantis' racist agenda. Under Florida law, there is no requirement that local police collaborate with ICE. This means that Lawrence Revel actively chose for the Tallahassee Police Department to take place in discriminatory and unjust 287G agreement. An agreement that the federal government shut down in 2012 due to its use in racial profiling, in the very same agreement that Donald Trump recently reinstated. As of today, the Tallahassee Police Department, Leon County Sheriff's Office, and the FAMU Police Department have all signed on, with FSU in the process of doing so. This decision, a direct choice to put immigrants and their families in harm's way, is cruel, unnecessary, and will destroy any remaining trust that exists between local communities and the police. In giving officers the ability to carry out immigration procedures, the city of Tallahassee is explicitly telling its residents it will not protect them from Trump and DeSantis. These very same attacks led to the recent and unjustified revocation of 3 international students' visas at FSU. On top of all this, in January 2025, the city of Tallahassee dissolved the Citizens Police Review Board, eliminating any chance for independent investigation into racial profiling, abuse, and discrimination committed by the TPD. Shortcomings clearly demonstrated in how Black victims like Lori Page were and are routinely dismissed and ignored. Altogether, this creates an environment where officers are empowered to harm their community, not help it, and makes the city of Tallahassee directly complicit in Trump and DeSantis' racist, dangerous, and anti-immigrant policies. So to state it once again, the request is a simple one, that Chief Lawrence Revel terminate the 287G agreement, end all collaboration with immigration agencies like ICE, and that the city of Tallahassee join together with its immigrant community to take a stand against the cruel policies of Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis. Thank you.
Next speaker, please.
Jason Card, followed by Aiden.
Name and address for the record, please.
My name is Jason Card. I am from 32301, Tallahassee. I'm here to support terminating the 287G agreement between Tallahassee PD and ICE. This agreement is dangerous to citizens in our community as well as destroying further any trust between the TPD and our community. ICE has shown that it cannot follow its own rules, let alone general constitutional principles, and we should not voluntarily support and cooperate with them. Thank you.
Our next speaker, please.
Aiden is next, followed by Catherine Kurzweil.
Name and address for the record, please.
My name is Aiden. I live in Tallahassee. I'm here today with the Tallahassee Immigrant Rights Alliance to demand that TPD Chief Lawrence Revel and anyone with direct power over them, Reese Goad, city manager, unelected, terminate the 287G agreement with ICE. This is ridiculous. It is not legally required. If you guys were here at the last city commission, I believe all of you were, then you remember the conversations that happened about how unelected city officials, namely city manager Reese Goad and again, killer cop Lawrence Revel, are entering into a voluntary agreement with ICE, an agreement that was terminated in 2012 for rampant racial profiling, and somehow Lawrence Revel can come up here and claim that the Tallahassee Police Department is the finest in the country or the finest in the state. I mean, it's ridiculous. They waited 12 days to start looking for Lori Page. The police misconduct in the Calvin Riley case, no one ever talks about that. They act as though it never happened. The Tallahassee Police Department is not to be trusted. Police Chief Lawrence Revel has shown that he cannot keep the Tallahassee Police Department in check, and you removed all access for the citizens to even comment on the police. I mean, it's just ridiculous. We just saw 3 student visas were revoked at Florida State University. FAMU entered into a 287G agreement. This is, I mean, it will only snowball. We are at the bottom of the slippery slope, and just silence from all the people in the city. It's just ridiculous. I mean, again, Lawrence Revel waited 12 days to start looking for Lori Page. And it's not because the Tallahassee Police Department is not proactive. They're very proactive when it comes to working with ICE, when it comes to racially profiling our citizens, when it comes to committing police misconduct, doctoring the evidence, and then getting an all-white jury to convict people. They are very proactive. They will use their powers. They will stop at nothing to harass the citizens of Tallahassee. And any member of the commission who is silent is signing on to that. They're signing on to the harassment of immigrants. Unelected official, city manager Reese Goad is 100% in the wrong for this and is directly, even if partially, responsible for anything that happens to immigrants in this community because of this agreement. And I hope that you know that. I know that you know that, and you still do nothing. So I yield the rest of my time. Thank you.
Our next speaker, please.
Next speaker, Mayor, is Catherine Kurzweil, and then Ursula Chalmers.
Name and address for the record, please.
Catherine Kurzweil, and I live in zip code 32304. I'm with the Tallahassee Immigrant Rights Alliance, and we demand that TPD terminate the 287G agreement, and we demand that you, city commissioners, denounce this decision. 2 days ago, FSU revealed that they had revoked 3 students' visas, and if journalists had not directly asked FSU, administration would likely never reveal that this happened. The university and police departments think that they can silently make decisions that affect the people of our community, but we will always find out, and we will be at every city commission meeting to condemn what they are doing. Even our university isn't a safe space for immigrants. Regardless of if someone was born in America or not, they are entitled to have an education here. These students were paying tuition and working their asses off for a degree, just like every other student. Now, TPD, FSU PD, and FAMU PD are all signing on to this agreement because they are scared of what Ron DeSantis will do if they don't attack the immigrant community as much as they possibly can. Everyone on the city commission is supposedly a Democrat, and yet the only 2 people who have enough integrity to speak against this are Jack Porter and Jeremy Matlow. If you support the 287G agreement, you support the attacks on immigrants, and you support Donald Trump's and Ron DeSantis' repressive policies. Maybe you're sitting there and you're thinking, it's out of my hands. This is between you guys and Chief Lawrence Revel. If you want to do something, you can. You can reinstate the Citizens Police Review Board. It's literally the least you can do. Please do not allow for TPD to enter into this horribly repressive agreement without any community control of the police. Show us that you care for immigrants and that you care for your community. I yield the rest of my time.
Our next speaker, please.
Marcel Chalmers, and then Kayla McClune.
Your name and address for the record, please.
Thank you for listening. I want to stress out, as responsible creators, we can't afford to be blindsided any longer. Citizens are not any longer silent. My personal concern is the mailing. The post office 32303 didn't deliver package. They were returned as address is not found, which is the number is on my mailbox. The same was mailed. Today I received 7 letters were with the wrong address and wrong house number. My second concern is property taxes, who affect us, everybody. I do not understand that people who have paid off their homes, who own their homes, not the bank, that they have to pay property taxes. It's like I still pay sale tax on my owned car from the original purchase. It does not make sense. I'm sorry. The other thing I noticed I'm very active in Tallahassee. At every road, there is one lot for sale. And mostly Bühlers has overtaken this city, or this development, I should say. As you know or don't know, Bühler's relative, he's from Lebanon, works for Trump. Is there some nepotism or something going on which the public should know? That is my question. And the other thing coming from Europe is the, excuse me for the term, the disgusting drinking water here, so that we have to almost purchase bottled water. The water the city provides us is contaminated with fluoride. Fluoride is a neurotoxin. It's not good for our health. Even if it's claimed to be efficient to kill bacteria in the short term, it has a long-term effect on health.
You have 30 seconds remaining.
The same is with chlorine. Let me see what else. Oh yeah, and the use of plastic, which I really don't understand either. The US is one of the biggest trash contaminator in the world, and I do not understand. Europe has recyclable plastic bags, and they
You're at 3 minutes.
they refer it to the.
Thank you very much.
They refer it to the citizen.
Your time is up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker, please.
Kayla McClone is next, and then Adam Flannery.
Your name and address for the record, please.
Hello, my name is Kayla McClune. My zip code is 32301. Good evening, Commissioners. I'm here with the Tallahassee Immigrant Rights Alliance. Recently, as we've heard, the Tallahassee Police Department entered into the task force model of the 287G agreement, a collaborative contract with ICE which delegates specified immigration officer duties to Tallahassee police officers. As a citizen and as a Tallahassee resident, I find this extremely disconcerting due to the increased instances of racial profiling that it creates. I recognize that this was Tallahassee Police Chief Lawrence Revel's decision and doing. I recognize that as city commissioners, you do not have the power to sign or block this agreement. I hope, however, that Chief Revel is willing to hear my concerns as a member of the public which he's charged with serving and protecting. I do not feel that this agreement serves or protects me or people who look like me. Instead, this agreement will create an environment of fear for both undocumented and documented immigrants, for the friends and family members of both undocumented and documented immigrants, and for all Tallahassee residents of color who will have to confront a possibility of police profiling that will lead to a detention or deportation with no due process, with no regard for their immigration or citizenship status, as has been happening more and more frequently in this state and around the country. I apologize for my emotion. Chief Revel, you had no legal obligation to enter this agreement. I urge you to terminate it at the earliest possible opportunity. City commissioners, while you may have no direct power over this agreement, I urge you to do what you can do, both in your official powers and in private conversations, to protect your immigrant community in your city, your constituents, and your voters. Thank you for your time.
Next speaker, please.
Next speaker is Adam Flannery. That's the final speaker I have.
Name and address for the record, please.
My name is Adam Flannery with the Tallahassee Community Action Committee. I live in 32305 zip code in Tallahassee. We demand that Chief Lawrence Revel terminate the 287G agreement and any and all collaborations with immigration agencies such as ICE. The 287 agreement will further destroy any semblance of trust between local communities and the police, potentially resulting in more crime, not less, as immigrants feel intimidated to interact with the police when facing dangerous situations. We demand that the City of Tallahassee stand with its immigrant community and against Trump and DeSantis' racist agenda.
Our next speaker, please.
That was our final speaker, Mayor.
All right. We are on the sharing of ideas. Commissioner Matlow, we'll start with you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A few things I want to address. First, Mr. Manager, is Washington Square. I saw an article in the paper earlier this week, and it seemed the owner was talking about interest rates potentially going down, and it seems that we're so far away from that project ever coming to fruition. So my questions are, how large are the fines that have accrued? What's the process to file liens, and then what's the foreclosure process to restore safety to the site? Or Madam Attorney, whoever's best.
Mr. Mayor, and I don't want to put the attorney on the spot. In terms of the process, the attorney's office would be best to answer that. The fines continue to accrue. I don't know the amount, but they're significant. There's been no relief from those fines. And as far as any rumors about potential sale, they're at this point, best we can tell, they're rumors at best.
Okay. Madam Attorney, I'm ready to move forward. What can the City Commission do to get the ball rolling too?
So I also don't know the current amounts, but the process has always been that we could file an action to foreclose on the liens.
Okay.
It's complicated whether we would be successful in that or not, and I'm not really prepared to talk about it right now, but if you directed our office to do something like that, I think we could probably do that.
Yeah.
Or bring back an agenda item explaining the process. Maybe that would be a better way to do it.
Yeah.
Matlow, I remember, like a cat and mouse game. I see where you're going, and I'm with you. From what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, that when we start aggressively pursuing action, the owner of the property pays off just enough of the fines to legally satisfy where we are, which prevents us from being able to move forward, and then he racks up more fines, and it's just this circular game. So I would be interested to know where we are and where we're going to. Commissioner Matlow, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, if we could bring back the amount of the fines, increasing the fines if necessary to make it needed, if they're high enough, if they're not being paid off on a regular basis, initiating the lien and foreclosure process. I'm ready to move forward as quickly as possible, but an item coming back contemplating all the scenarios would be helpful.
At the same time, along the same thought process, Mr. Manager, we are consistently and routinely inspecting the site to make sure that it is structurally sound and it's not a danger to the community, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And currently, there's no pedestrian access, right? The sidewalk, that whole area is still blocked off?
No, sir, there's not. The main roads that move, I guess that would be north and south on either side of it, those are county roads. In that discussion, I think the county commission talked about that at its meeting last time. The side road is a city road. We've been in coordination with county staff and stand ready to put that road back in its original shape and apply whatever cost to the owner. I think that may move forward with the county. Those are when you hear about pedestrian access, those are the roads that typically are referred to. And so that, it sounds like the county's going to move forward with that, and certainly will complement any efforts they have on our roadway.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, that's my motion to bring back an item.
Second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes 4-0 with Mayor Pro Tem out of chamber.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Secondly, Mr. Manager, there's an article in the paper today about a meeting with TMH that occurred on Monday. There's a lot of assertions in that article, and can you walk us through that meeting and what your representative the city's position as?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the question. That was, one in a series of meetings. In the case of the meeting on Monday, TMH asked for the meeting. They asked FSU to be there. There's some effort of the two parties to try to find, the relationship, kind of where the relationship might end as it relates to this academic health center. They asked us to join. I joined. City attorney joined as well. And it was a continuation of the process. The premise of the meeting that we understood from TMH was to continue the conversation that had previously been had between TMH and FSU, centered around the MOU that they had developed previously, and that was executed by both parties in March of 2024. So that was the idea. So that kind of was the framing of the conversation. We're still kind of in the starting blocks of those conversations as it relates to that relationship. Of course, the question of selling the hospital continues to come up. I made that very clear that there is no topic in front of the city commission. It has not been directed to sell the hospital. That's not a vote that the city commission is, pending discussion or ready to take. The question in front of the city commission is whether or not to approve the holding company, the Harris board that TMH has requested. In addition, TMH has asked for, or indicated that they intend to ask for permission to continue the Panama City Beach Hospital project. They've indicated that numerous times. At the best we can tell, they still intend to ask for that with hopeful action on May 14th. That's very, very short notice. There's a lot packed in that. What I shared with them, because I don't want there to be any surprises, and this is my opinion, is that I have serious concerns that the City of Tallahassee does not have the legal authority to approve such a transaction. The reason being is this would be a hospital system in Panama City Beach. The City of Tallahassee, as a city in the state of Florida, has only certain authority and powers. We're not a corporation. We're not a business. We can't just operate businesses or create businesses in other jurisdictions. So based on that, that's a concern. I indicated that it was likely the city commission would deny their request related to Panama City Beach. I didn't want them to be surprised that we can't really afford those surprises. I think that was clear. I think they heard it. And certainly it impacts what we're talking about. There's been a lot of discussion about selling the hospital, which again is that's to be determined. That could be something that happens. What we know is the triggering of the conversation came about by TMH asking for a holding company to allow it to have a presence in Panama City Beach. What we also know is that that TMH has indicated that they intend to ask the city commission for approval to have a hospital in Panama City Beach. Two separate questions, but related. The reason TMH would have to ask for that permission is because we have a contract via lease agreement between the city and TMH, which you understand. We talked about that at your last meeting. The contract is because the city owns the assets. What they would need approval for is the city as the owner of the main assets in TMH to allow it to move forward in Panama City Beach. There's a direct nexus. This would not be a separate company. It would not be some different entity that has no relationship. It would be guaranteed by the assets that are owned by the city. So that gets very complicated when we're the city in terms of our relationship via an ownership nexus to Panama City Beach. So we shared that. It was a long conversation. That was a small part of the conversation. Where the conversation ended, about a 2-hour meeting, I would estimate. A lot of people, all the parties there, smart people. Where it ended was with TMH and FSU committing to sit down and talk about, talk about working on an MOU that would be predicated on the Panama City Beach model that they're at the doorstep of completing. That again, under the lease agreement that the city has with TMH would require the city commission's approval. But what I shared was that could be very complicated if the city commission doesn't have the legal authority to give that approval. So something would have to happen with the lease agreement. That needs to be understood because that could take a lot of time and a lot of legal work to remedy. But there was a positive momentum at the end of the meeting with TMH and FSU saying, let's work from the model that we've already spent a lot of time with. That model basically spells out FSU is the owner of the hospital in Panama City Beach. It'll be branded as FSU Health. That'll be the insignia on the outside of the building. TMH would be the operator in full control without any control oversight by FSU. The board that would oversee the entity would be majority TMH, minority FSU. It would be a local board of Bay and Walton County residents. All the doctors and staff and all the clinicians would work for TMH. There was a lot of work that went into that both parties were satisfied with. And so they've said, hey, let's go work from that and see if we can find the best fit that could apply in Tallahassee. And so that's where we left the meeting. TMH, I know, sent an email to its employees saying that they're working together with FSU, City of Tallahassee, and I believe even today, I think they're issuing a joint statement to that effect. And so that's the movement from that meeting. Whether or not TMH pursues the approval of the city commission for the Heirs Board and the Panama City Beach Hospital, at this point, we assume they will move forward with that, but that could change, I think, as we move forward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Manager. Madam Attorney, have you issued an opinion on whether we have that authority on Panama City and the Heirs Board?
My office is looking at that right now. I will say that we have actually not seen the actual documents, so I feel like it's a little bit premature to issue a legal opinion, but we are looking at that question.
Thank you. Mr. Manager, I think it's premature to go to a meeting and represent the city commission's position and it seems like your position is that you think it would likely be illegal and we don't have the authority to do it, but what was said in your statements and in the paper is that will not get support of the city commission. That's what I'm asking for. Has that been discussed publicly or privately that we don't know about?
Mr. Mayor, I'll be real clear, sir.
Mr. Manager.
I was clear the first time, I'll be clear again. I said that I, as the city manager, have serious concerns that the city of Tallahassee does not have the legal authority to approve the agreement. That's what I represented. That's almost verbatim, probably verbatim what I said. Madam Attorney, is that what I said? So that's clear. And I said, based on that, the city commission is likely to deny your request related to Panama City Beach. I said that. I didn't say what you were going to do. I didn't speak for you. But in fairness, they need to understand, from my point of view, they could argue legally you have the authority to approve a transaction in Panama City Beach. They've yet to do that. To the city attorney's point, we've asked for all the records. We don't have any. They've not offered any records. We're very hopeful we'll get some because we have to make a decision. But what shouldn't happen is any surprises. We have not even received their request to approve the Panama City Beach Hospital, but they've indicated numerous times that it's coming. What I fear is it comes and there's this last minute surprise of the city doesn't even have the authority to approve it. We shouldn't do that. They could certainly overcome that if they believe we do, and they could convince you that you have the authority to take that action. And then you could deliberate whether or not it makes sense for the city of Tallahassee to authorize an investment in Panama City Beach using the assets in Tallahassee as collateral. That would be a question, but all of that needs to be real clear. I've represented it from my point of view very clearly. They understood that. And so, but we don't want any surprises. We want to put it all out. Let's see what everybody's thinking. It's very complicated. It is extraordinarily complicated to think that the city of Tallahassee would have oversight of an operation, of a hospital operation in Panama City Beach.
Okay.
Commissioner Mallow.
And as information becomes available, I would like to receive it, because all the information I've received from management and the attorney's office is we're still seeking information. But now it appears determinations are being made and that information shared at meetings that we haven't been a part of. And my last question on that, it was...
Hold on just a second, because that's a very big point. I agree with you. I have, at the last meeting a couple of weeks ago, specifically asked the CEO and the chair of the board for specific information on exposure, liability, assets. I have received no information. I'm assuming, and I'm asking Mr. Manager and Madam Attorney, have you received any information from the hospital either?
We have not.
Okay. You sent over a list of questions to the hospital, Mr. Manager, Madam Attorney. Have we received any information at all from TMH in regards to those
That's
questions?
what I was referring to. We have not received the.
Yeah, so Commissioner Matlow, I share your concern and I share your frustration. We have received no information from TMH whatsoever.
Okay. And my follow-up question, Mr. Manager, is it was insinuated that there were threats against your commissioners. Can you elaborate on that part of the conversation?
No, sir. No,
You cannot elaborate? No. Was it spoken to of in the meeting?
No, I don't.
It's hearsay.
Just hearsay? Nobody present would recall that conversation? Madam Attorney?
What was the?
Was there a conversation as far as threats to city commissioners at the meeting with TMH? Political or otherwise, or insinuated?
I think there was some conversation about political conversations.
Okay. Mr. Manager, can you elaborate on what those conversations were?
No.
Okay. I find it wholly inappropriate to have political conversations and represent the city in political capacities while negotiating for the city in a public position. I'm going to leave it there. Yeah, moving on to my third item. Thank you to all the public speakers who have come today. What's happening at the federal government is so far beyond the pale. What we're seeing, as mentioned in the El Salvador camps, to multiple federal judges weighing in, finding probable cause that this administration may be in contempt of court for not listening to court orders. That should concern every citizen of the United States. That's so far removed from anything our Constitution stands for. We continue to follow those conversations closely. I know they're ongoing. Court cases are even playing out today, but I know my personal opinion and my personal capacity, I welcome people to our country and do everything we can to protect them. I think we're seeing that even from this administration, how detrimental it can be to this country when you move forward with mass deportations without following the rule of law or looking at the unintended consequences when you do so. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Commissioner Porter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have just a clarifying question on the TMH issue. So the clock has been paused then, Mr. City Manager, as far as it was my understanding that once a request is made to the City Commission officially, we have 60 days to make a determination. or else it's approved automatically. And my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, when we sent the letter making a request, did that pause? I mean, they have to withdraw it in order for it to be paused, or we have to say, one way or the other?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Excuse me. Commissioner, you're right. The clock doesn't stop.
Okay.
And I think that's why we've, really wanted to move forward as much as we can to get answers to the questions, kind of share those ideas. Now, of course, TMH has the right to withdraw, maybe waive the time limit. They've not done that. And so we're operating under the condition of a 60-day clock. The May 14th meeting would satisfy that, so that the City Commission would need to take action. In the absence of action, you're right, it would just by default go into effect.
Okay, thank you.
Can I follow up on
Sure.
point with that? I'm still having trouble wrestling with the question of if the hospital is formally asking us to approve continuation of construction of the hospital, that would signal that we have a formal role in this process. I'm very confused. Why weren't we involved with the initial conversation of construction of a hospital an hour and a half outside of our jurisdiction? I just don't, these are the questions that I've been asking, and I know that we sent over. What is the role of the city? I don't understand how we can be involved with the formal blessing of a continuation when we weren't at the table when this discussion began.
Mr. Mayor, and it's not even fair to put the city attorney in that position, because the reality of it is there's many things we don't know. We have done a lot of research and we've done a lot of discovery. TMH has not shared any information other than what they've asked for officially in the ARIS board and what they've indicated that they intend to ask for in the Panama City Beach Hospital. What we do know from our own discovery, that we feel like we know, I shouldn't say it so confidently, but we feel relatively confident that we know that the hospital is being built in Panama City Beach. It's underway, it's permitted, it has all of its permits, the foundation is being built, and TMH is building it, not FSU, they're building it. We know that on the campus, there's a medical office building that TMH is operating out of and in the process of subleasing some of the space. We reasonably believe there's a lease for that facility. The lease would have, by nature of the agreement we have with TMH, would have required City Commission approval. We know that didn't occur. So we're really trying to discover all of this. At the same time, we're trying to learn as much as we can. There's a very intimate relationship between the city and TMH as it relates to the ownership of the hospital. What we do know is that all of the discussions revolve around the Panama City Beach Hospital project and the medical campus on that same, the medical office on that same campus. And so we're very hopeful that we'll get more information. Maybe some of the information we think we know is wrong. It'll help us formulate, answers and opinions, make recommendations. Again, I'll come back to, I'm very aware of the authority that's granted the City of Tallahassee to operate. As city manager, I have to understand that. We have very limited powers, especially outside of our jurisdiction. We do have some extraterritorial powers. Sometimes things have to be authorized by the special act of the legislature, but we don't have just the ability to operate outside of Tallahassee. And so that I'm increasingly concerned about that aspect of it. And what I feel confident about is when the lease was established in 1979, there is a provision in the lease related to long-term indebtedness that says the City Commission has to approve those matters, loans, notes, bond issues. You guys have taken action on that, including leases. It stands to reason because those would be leveraged off of the assets that the City of Tallahassee owns, and that if in default, if TMH became financially stressed, like let's hypothetically buy an operation in Panama City Beach, the operations would default back to the city. We still have that position. We don't think about it because it's been so long, but there's no way in 1979, I don't believe, that a new hospital tethered to the TMH hospital that we own would be built. So I think there's this kind of evolution of how hospitals work, healthcare systems work, and that's really, I think, where we are with the question, all trying to get to the right answer. I've said before, I still do believe there's a relationship to be built. There's too much time that's been put into it by FSU and TMH that fits this model of this academic health center. It's in TMH's strategic plan. And so if we can fit that together, I think that might answer a lot of these questions and solve some of the contractual issues and operational issues.
Yeah, we all have a lot of questions. Commissioner Porter, you still have the floor. Was that on point, Commissioner Richardson? Or can we let
Go
Commissioner
ahead,
Porter?
Commissioner Porter can.
All right, I got questions. Based on what you just said, if I heard you correctly, that means that if the hospital was to borrow money, they would have to have formal approval from this body.
Yes, sir.
And that if they were going to bond, they would have to have formal approval from this body. Neither of which has come before this body on the hospital, which then begs the question, how are they building a hospital if they haven't come to us to borrow?
Well, we don't know, Mr. Mayor.
Right.
I mean, we
So
don't
have we
have,
asked this
right, we don't know what the nature of the transactions are, so
Okay.
I don't want to make any assumptions.
These are
but
part of the questions
We do
that
not
we have
know,
asked.
that's right, we don't know.
Then goes back to what is our exposure, what is our risk?
Right.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Porter, I'm sorry.
Sure, and Commissioner Richardson is welcome to, as far as I'm concerned, ask his questions on this topic as well. Just a follow-up question, so at what point, because I know that the Panama City campus hospital has been in discussion for a long time, so were we not working with them at all up until recently when they made a separate request?
No,
Correct.
no, ma'am.
Madam Attorney?
No, we were not working with them. So the request that came to us was the request for the restructuring of the ARIS board. That's actually the only thing that's pending before this body right now. It was brought before you at the last meeting, March 26th. So that goes back to your question, Commissioner, about the 60 days.
Okay. And I understand this is complicated, and I'm genuinely not pointing any fingers at anyone because there's so much we need to learn. But when we learned about the Panama City, we didn't reach out to ask them. I mean, because it seems like this has been ongoing, in the works at least for a long time.
Oh, there
It
were
seems like-
discussions.
Okay, so it's not
I believe there were discussions when it was presented about what it meant, and did we have any questions, and how, explaining how it was set up so that we could present it to the city commission for approval on the ARIS board.
But not until the ARIS board recommendation came before us. Am I understanding this correct? Commissioner Porter's got a great question. So when this idea first started, Florida State and TMH started talking about a facility in Panama City Beach, were we formally invited to the table? I think that's the question.
No.
Were we formally invited to the table as a partner, knowing that due to the lease agreements that we have with the hospital, we provide possibly, based on an interpretation of, or a legal opinion based on what we find out, that we could have a formal role in this? Were we invited to the table?
No, sir. And Commissioner, I think I understand you. We weren't, but we, of course, read the news like everybody else did that there was this emerging partnership. We had no idea the nature of the partnership, and it could entirely take place without the need for the city commission's approval. We just didn't understand the nature of it. But if the entirety of the relationship was TMH was going to be the operator with no obligation, no lease obligation, no funding obligation, it wouldn't come before the city commission. It would be separate from.
And we frankly still don't know that for sure.
We were making assumptions, but it's based on them saying they need the city commission's approval. We have inquired with the Bay County Growth Management Department. We do understand the nature and how far along the project is, the scope of the project, which is consistent with the hospital itself. who's doing the project. We know these things from our own inquiries, and so we're doing our best to get up to speed.
Thank you. Thank you. And if Commissioner Richardson has a question on this topic.
Yeah, it was just a follow-up, Commissioner Porter, to your questioning about this, I mean, the financing of the project in Panama City. Are any financial resources generated here in Tallahassee being used in that project?
We don't know.
We don't know.
We've asked that question.
There is so much that we don't know. It's just, it's unbelievable. And that that project is moving forward, and I don't know where we are at this point. You know, we're having this discussion, nobody knows. I have people approaching me in the public. They think they know, but they don't know. And so, I mean, at this point, exactly where are we?
Mr. Mayor,
Does anybody?
Commissioner, I think it's a great question. And we're doing everything in our power to learn so we can fit in and weigh in properly. I think what we knew already was that there was this relationship between FSU and TMH. We all read that in the news. We know from TMH's own strategic plan that they're moving to an academic health center. So we know that there's a partnership. When this came in, they shared with me, or TMH shared with me when this request came in, an MOU that FSU and TMH had already worked on. And so I think what we've seen is there's an opportunity to kind of finalize that, and that probably takes us into the future because it's so consistent with what they've said. It's consistent with the relationship we see in Panama City Beach, but how the city fits in that is still not perfectly clear.
Right, and how do we make a decision on May 14th about this ARIS board when we've still got all these questions? And my understanding is if we approve the ARIS board, then that essentially takes us out of the equation, us meaning the city, out of the equation altogether.
We haven't seen a single document.
Right.
So I don't know what to tell you, Commissioner. We're formally waiting on TMH to provide the information formally requested by this body. Commissioner Porter.
Thank you. And are we, Mr. City Manager, we're also waiting, though, correct me if I'm wrong, to hear from FSU, are we not? We also sent them a letter with some questions. Or have we asked them, I don't remember all the questions off the top of my head. Have we asked them this question? Because they're also obviously involved.
Yeah, we've asked, we asked different kinds of questions.
Right.
TMH, we asked about the governance, so that would be germane to them. The governance today and the proposed governance of the ARIS board, we asked both of them questions related to Panama City Beach, and then requests for documents, financial statements, that kind of stuff.
Okay. Are we under the impression that the 20 days we gave them, both parties, will be enough for them to get all of that information together? I have no idea, you know, when I read that, kind of how much goes into, do they already have it or do they not?
I mean, I'm told that they're working on it.
Okay.
So, but we haven't gotten, and it is a voluminous request. So I don't blame them for having it take some time for sure. So, but yeah, we haven't had a deadline or anything like that. So.
Just a follow-up.
Sure.
So do they understand then that we would need that information prior to 30 days from now when we're asked to vote on this bylaws?
I think so, yes.
I would say so.
Okay. So they know that they can't just twiddle their hands, kind of dribble us information as they see fit, that there is a timeline.
Yes.
And it won't be the 30 days, because we'll need this information at least a couple of weeks before we're asked to vote on something this major and important.
Well, the agenda item will come out the week prior, so all information relating to the agenda item will need to be presented at least a week prior. That right there knocks you down to 3 weeks. hopefully have information before that, so we have the opportunity to
Right.
deal with it.
And if it's voluminous, we may need more than a week to plow through it and understand what it all means.
Well, and that, right, at the, well, no, I mean, I agree with you, and at that point, though, TMH always has the option of extending, they can offer.
Or just withdrawing.
Or that can be negotiated.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I was reading the Leon, or watching one of the county commission meetings, and they have a report that's called the Commissioner Discussion Item Status Report. That's just a spreadsheet of what the commissioners, motions that commissioners make, or that we vote on, that pass, that, and a status update on those motions. And I found it a really helpful tool and something that would be helpful to me to keep track of as well. And so I wanted to make a motion that we would have a similar commissioner discussion item status report on a quarterly basis or once a year, just to see some of the motions that we've made and an update on them.
Motion, second it. Any question? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, passes unanimously. 4-0 with Mayor Pro Tem Alchin.
Thank you, that's all for me.
All right, Commissioner Richardson.
Have anything, Mayor?
We stand adjourned.